I agree, and I agree with Anthony. It's like sometimes it's like find reference and use it. It's like, but everybody chooses different reference. So
Mm.
like, like even if you're like painting a lion, right? I'm like, use a lion for reference. Like the lion Matt picks might be a different than the lion I pick.
Well, I'm not trying to do anything exactly like any of these, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's
But
inspirational.
yeah, let's see.
All right, Anthony's back.
Wait, can you guys see me
I
now?
don't know what happened.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
touched
I
anything.
don't know. I just was pushing buttons randomly on my A10 Mini Pro and just
Ah,
worked. So
there we go. Yeah, so we saw you, and then we saw your finger, and then we saw you again. So pretty awesome. Cool. Okay, that makes me feel better.
Okay, I will put it up in our chat if you want to figure out how to get it on the screen.
That's a good question.
okay. I'll take a picture of your picture and show it to.
We're gonna go back to the.
I could also share my screen, but
Okay.
It just makes me want to
Fun.
look at this photograph.
Yeah, there we go.
Good.
Here we go.
Uh,
Ta-da!
hold on.
Oh, he's
Nice.
so hot right now.
yeah.
Very
All right,
cool.
well, let's take a look at the model
All
here.
right, I'm switching it back to Matt. Let's go. Let's get this.
All right.
That's a super cool model.
Let's see if I can make sure we stay in frame here. So
He's so
gotta make a couple
beefy.
little adjustment here for you guys.
These nuts.
All right, I'm gonna try my best to keep it in frame, zoomed in like this. But if I stray, you guys just holler at me, please. Yeah, I already started on the red a little bit, but we'll just switch over to the non-metallic metals. I'm just gonna do the classic chrome, sort of like brownish and bluish. So the idea is that you want to kind of, I like to imagine almost like a dome over this thing, and kind of imagine where, so any of these surfaces, what part of that dome the surface is facing, and then what would be on that part. So is it facing towards the sky? Is it facing towards the horizon? Is it facing towards the ground, right? And those are kind of the simplest things to think about. Now, we're just going to like when you're painting non-metallic metals, you can kind of make some rules. You can just imagine, you can simplify it to be like, is it facing horizon, sky, or ground? And then you can decide, well, the ground is close by, so it's going to be like the blue or the brown of the chrome, right? Or it'll be fairly grayish, but I wanted a little bit more contrast, so we're going to add a little bit of brown to it. And then parts that are facing up towards the sky are going to be, of course, sort of bluish, but a little bit of gray in there. We don't want to make it like perfect chrome or like reflections. And then the horizon is going to be dark, and that will create the terminator on the piece. So there will be a dark area that separates these two parts of the chrome reflection from one another.
Matt, hey Matt, can you explain Terminator?
Yeah, so the terminator is just the name for that section where one light falls off and is no longer influencing the surface. So the terminator is always the darkest part of your figure, and especially it's really important, especially for anything that's reflective, which would be like a non-metallic metals is the example of that. But really, like, it could just refer to the area where the influence of a particular light source drops off completely. But in this case, it'll just be basically a dark section or a dark line that separates the two reflections from one another, the reflection of the ground and the reflection of the sky. This is like, not 100% like, it's not supposed to be like painted realistic, but you'll see it if you pay attention in the comics. That's basically the inked section in the comics in the reflection of in the metal of Colossus' skin, right? That's basically where the black ink goes. That would.
So are you gonna black ink it first and then put the color on, or are you gonna just go?
No,
straight?
just like with my other paint jobs, what we're doing is we're adding color first, and then we add the black ink later because we're using paint rather than ink. If you're doing this in the classic way of doing comics, you could add the ink first, and then, or you could add the black first and then ink over top. But because we're using paint, if you were to do that, it would fog and the black. It would make the black. It would kind of cover it up, right? Because you're using paint rather than ink. Ink is transparent, so when you paint ink over black, it will just make the black darker and make it disappear. So the technique is a little different here. And yeah, with just like with my other paint jobs, we're adding color first, and then so I'm saying anything that's facing towards the ground, this part of the leg, is a good example. We're just going to be painting it this dark gray, this brownish gray. And every volume might have like sections of that brown, like so. So just all those overhanging areas, we're just kind of replacing them with this brown color. And what's nice is that you can kind of use the side of your brush to isolate a particular angle, or that's basically what I'm doing. So I just know if one of these angles is facing the ground, I should be able to find other angles of the same angle. They're facing towards the ground. So we can kind of see how I can just quickly paint all those angles that brown color, right? Right. Maybe down here. Now, if I was trying to be more realistic, I might try be concerned about like areas that are actually maybe facing towards red parts on the surface, and we could have some of that red showing up in the reflections and stuff. But I've noticed in the comics they don't really do that on him, so we're just gonna skip that part. But what we might do is that here on the top of his muscles, there might be another Terminator because there's this big arm that would be blocking the light. So there could be big shadows here on top from that. You can see I already did a little bit on the back here while we were getting ready. When I get on these streams and we're figuring out the sound, I'm just like, I just want to paint, So I just do a little bit of painting. It's probably like really.
I'm usually thinking, why me? Why me?
Right. I mean, it would be kind of cool to have a little red in the underside of his face or something like that, and it actually would make sense and make him look like kind of give that angry impression. So screw it. I'm gonna do it anyways, even though I don't see it in the comics. So we can kind of see this red. This is actually gonna be yellow, so we'll put a little bit of that in there too.
So I have a question about
Absolutely, yeah.
what your overall plan is. Like, this miniature was designed when we were thinking about the composition, and like when we were working on the pose and stuff like that, there was a lot of like, how do you express the Colossus, right? How do you express Colossus? Like, and he had a couple of poses drawn where he's just like standing there, like, tough guy in, right? Kind of like that piece of art, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool and dramatic when you have, a comic book cover. You have all the explosions, you have the titles and all that. But we wanted something like express like his strength, like him. So lifting something became like this sort of like goal we wanted. We talked about like a motorcycle. We talked about like several different ideas, and I kept adding Sentinel parts to all the different X-Men, and like so the Sentinel arm became like this thing, and it was real important because I was just like, the palm of the Sentinel is this glowing disc that they like blast people with, right? And like I thought it'd be cool for like painters, an opportunity for somebody like, everybody to do object source lighting from that circle. So my question is, are you gonna explore that in this piece? Or are you gonna minimize it?
I wasn't planning on it because I thought that the Sentinel's arm had been like sort of destroyed.
Well, yeah,
So
but it's comics, so like there's still some power surge in there. There's like
I mean,
there's
I
no
definitely could.
residual.
It would have to come in, and I would probably do it at the end. But
Mhm.
we could do that
Try it.
pretty easily, honestly.
You could
Um,
you could like have like some wires coming out of the arms and then like make some sparkly, like there's still energy in it, you
Yeah,
know?
still energy,
Mhm.
like the still charged through it. That
Mm.
was always my idea about it. It's like it
I
just
don't,
gives that
yeah.
little opportunity.
I do like your hearing your take on the creative side of how you conceptualized a figure. That's pretty interesting.
Oh, I love it hearing the other side of it, of the curtain. Like we're talking
Mhm.
about painting wise, and we're like, oh, how are we going to attack this? And to know that like that was actually thought about when when it was being sculpted and everything. I mean, let alone just like, is this even can we even produce this?
Yeah.
But so it's like it's not as easy as people think sometimes. I don't think,
Mm-mm.
Dallas. It's like, like, why didn't they do this? And it's like, well, because that's physically impossible with a die mold. So you kind of got to work your way around it, or all that fun stuff. So it's just kind of cool to see.
so now we're taking my blue, and basically the part that I didn't paint brown, we're painting blue. This might actually go a lot quicker than I thought it would.
It's interesting, Matt. Like in the reference that you picked, it seems like the red and the yellow are actually metals, right? In this reference, and like the yellow is like a gold, whereas in other art, like the red and the yellow are like latex or vinyl or whatever the spandex costume is, and not necessarily metallic. So I'm curious how are you gonna approach it?
Yeah, I probably am gonna make it. I think that it's actually more contrast on the figure if they're not reflective.
Mm-hmm.
If everything is, reflective, it's actually like kind of less contrast on the piece. But they'll still be sort of blingy and everything. They'll probably be a little blingy. I mean,
Yeah.
it does. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me, but that was my plan. like,
Yeah, I'm
uh,
just curious.
like
Yeah,
I could
what you
change it
yeah.
to being more reflective, like really
I mean,
easily.
yeah. I mean, I hear you on the contrast. It would contrast more if it wasn't as reflective. But I'm
Yeah.
just curious what you're planning on doing. Because I just noticed that right now. I hadn't seen a Colossus with like colored metal. Is the yellow and red. So it's cool.
Yeah, I like this. I like where you're going here.
Yeah, I thought it would be good and it would look nice, but be achievable in the time frame we have. Because I'm gonna try to have them finished by the end of the stream, so we can see that we're doing the blue and the brown together here, and we're kind of splitting the model into two halves. And I think that like anytime you're gonna do non-metallic metals, you should think about splitting every volume. Or really like the model as a whole. Not every volume has to be like two halves, but usually there will be two halves split, and then that can give you like a really good place to start. And also a really good rule of thumb is that every the darkest place on a metallic object or reflective object is the terminator. It's not the bottom. Like a non-reflective object is going to be the overhanging areas that are the darkest. But on a reflective object, it's actually the separation between the two halves is the darkest area, because that overhang is now reflecting something, and so it gets lighter,
What
basically.
What do you mean by the overhang, Matt?
Overhangs, anything that's like overhanging, like the underside of his butt there, for example.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Mm-hmm.
of those On a normal object, something that's not reflective, those will be the darkest values on your figure. Will be in the overhangs. But on a reflective object, it'll be the separation line, the terminator between the two areas will be the darkest area.
Because reflective surfaces on the overhangs would still be reflecting some kind of bounce light.
Yeah, it'll be reflecting the ground, so it actually is lighter, and you'll see that in depictions and in paint jobs.
All right. We had a question from Scott. He said that Colossus became a pacifist and refused to fight ever again. Anyone know if he gave that up and is back to throwing hands? He might be play fighting. I don't know, in the games,
Is that, I don't know, like...
Well, Sentinels don't count, right?
Yeah.
Wait, are they sentient?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what version of Sentinels, I guess,
Yeah, Sentinel Primes are definitely humans that have been, transformed into, or Prime Sentinels are definitely transferred humans.
We're getting deep into the nerd culture here.
Nice. I'm here for it.
Yeah. So am I.
Yeah, but I think it's it's part of the lore and stuff, and that's what so it gets me going and excited about painting. I've been digging it.
All the X-Men are for MCP are definitely highly 90s inspired, and so that Colossus is here to tussle.
Yeah.
That Colossus is here to...
No bars held. Oh yeah.
So just kind of deepening things up here with like a little bit of transparent brown.
My armpits are.
Are you using a transparent paint, or are you using transparent paint like an airbrush paint, or are you thinning some paint?
I'm using Van Dyke brown.
Van Dyke brown. It's just thinning it with water.
Yeah, just with a little bit of water. It's a really dark brown, but transparent, which is not as common. It's called Van Dyke brown because it's like the brown that the artist Van Dyke, who he's a famous artist, came after Rubens. He was like a student of Peter Paul Rubens. This is the color that he used to do all of his underpainting, so that's why it's called Van Dyke brown.
I was hoping the story was it's called Van Dyke Brown because every time you put a little drop out, it goes, "Hello, Mary Poppins."
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
It's stepping time.
But if you wanted to, you could use a dark, sort of like any. I don't know. You could take a brown and mix a dot or two of like a black ink, or just use a dark brown ink with a little bit of paint mixed in. It would kind of do a similar sort of thing, Just what I got. It was actually left over on my palette, but yeah. I just filmed the next video in our Miniature Monthly series on painting that barbarian that I was showing off last time.
Did you finish it?
He's not finished, but we did the non-metallic metals on it, or a lot of it, a lot of the non-metallic metals. I think that looks pretty cool. I could give you guys a quick look, since some of you. I don't know. What do you think, Aaron? Should I show him?
Sure. Well, I don't care. It's art, so sure.
Okay, just wait real quick. We'll take a quick look at him. Obviously, he's not finished, but.
Oh.
Oh,
I
that's
like
nice.
the skin.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
So we can see actually here, there's the ground being reflected there, and then the sort of sky, cool. And then we have these the Terminator. See the black area? That's the Terminator. Okay. And then we actually have another reflection on the back of the helmet. Right.
Cool.
The axe as well. But yeah, there's still every area needs to still get a lot of work on it. But I think he looks pretty cool. The lighting's coming through, Bam. Liking it.
See, Scott, when we talk comic books and when you paint comic book characters, they cancel out and become super awesome. So that's how the universe works.
I mean, I could show in the comics that see that little space above my miniature shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I got some comics. Got some comics here in cases ready to go up there. So eventually,
sweet.
I'll be hanging up some comics.
What are your like? What's
I'll show two of them. Well, She-Hulk #1.
Ooh, what? Nice. That's cool.
Oh.
Very cool.
Wolverine #1.
What? Nice.
Yeah, look at him.
Oh,
That's awesome.
sweet.
And then one of my favorite characters just got a new series this year. So
Which one? What is that? Magic? Ah, sweet. She's pretty cool. I want to buy a Jim Lee sketch, inking sketch, and put that on my wall. They're expensive though. He's just like
Yeah,
an
they
option. They're expensive.
Just want to fill in the rest of this red, just so we have a little bit on there.
Are you leaving some of that, like the white showing through, on purpose, Matt, or you're gonna do something special with that, or it's just?
You mean in the metal?
No, in the red. You know the
Yeah,
the
it's
underneath.
basically I'm letting it be a little bit transparent,
Mhm,
like letting the white sort of
Mhm.
influence things a little bit more, and then we can just give it like a quick glaze.
Mhm.
You know how like when you're painting red, like and you're layering up from black or
Mhm.
something like that, you
Mhm.
might get into that salmon love
Mhm.
area, and then you're gonna glaze some red ink or something on top of it. Well, if we're going in the opposite direction, we can actually just get that highlight through transparency,
Mhm.
especially if you know how to blend.
Do you have a favorite blending technique nowadays, Matt? Do you use everything, or do you?
I use everything. Like generally, if I'm streaming or something like this, I won't use too brush blending because it tends to hit my mic.
Mm.
You know, I don't know. I use them for targeted sort of reasons. I do a lot more glaze like blending with glazes these days.
Mm.
I used to. A lot less two brush blending, but
Mhm.
two brush is still like really nice for doing a lot of different stuff. Especially like reaching sort of deep into the model anytime like I have to reach past a bunch of stuff, like get really, like deep on the figure where it's hard to reach. Man, I always
Yeah.
have that second brush for that because it just makes it so much easier. You can just act really purposefully, and
Mhm.
that you can't make mistakes really. Well, you'll make a mistake, but you'll just clean it up right away.
Yeah, I could never bring myself to have two brushes to use two brushes at the same time. Just lazy, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I actually don't use them as much as I used to. But
Yeah.
painting
Yeah.
changes. I mean, I painted two brush only for like 10 years
No,
almost.
the privateer press way.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Dallas?
Oh, I don't know. I was interrupting.
Oh no, that's okay.
I've been using a lot of salmon, actual salmon in my highlights for my reds.
You mean like the
Did you
fish?
get a little stinky?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
The oils in it make the binders like react in a really special way.
You gotta debone. You gotta debone it though.
You know.
is that so?
No, that's why you use smoked salmon.
Yeah.
So it's,
Oh,
it's delicious.
I
how
Just
does
a
it
few
stay
drops
out of? We
of
have
fish
so much
liver
smoked
oil in
salmon.
every pot of paint, and you're set.
Good times.
all right, don't do that. We're just
Don't do
kidding.
that, guys. Don't do that.
I swear, Matt said to use salmon in your paint, so get it.
I mean, monument says don't eat the paint. You're really going against that right now.
So I'd definitely lick my brush if that was the case. No, but yeah, I've been using a lot of like going kind of the kind of the pink route in the reds, and I find that as long as your midtones and midtones are very saturated red, it still reads as red rather than like a pink. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I've been enjoying that.
That's a good point. I mean, you do need the majority of it to be that really saturated red, but it does still work.
Yeah.
What's nice here is I kind of just use the same red and just do one more layer basically to get some more volume. See that?
Yeah.
Then I've got a little bit of Mars Violet, which is like a sort of a really dark iron oxide color that I'm mixing together for a little bit of shadow.
Are you using mostly like artist acrylics?
Like right now, yeah, I basically use all artist acrylics. Although, I mean, I have other paints that I'll pull out at times, but it's just nice for a lot of reasons. And I work a lot more transparently, as you're seeing here. So the miniature paints that are more designed to be able to cover really well over black, like they really fight you if you're trying to work really transparently.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just a different approach. I kind of coach no matter what approach people want to do because I've kind of done them all at this point. So
Yeah.
but in my own work, I like using the artist acrylics.
Do you have like particular like brand like Golden versus Liquitex, or like do you have a preference?
I don't have like say a strong preference for brand, and the neat thing is that like once you know the colors, they're going to be the same between these for the most part, other than like the earth tones will be different because they're getting those from different actual earths out there, so it can be actually kind of nice to diversify those. But I use Golden and Holbein. I really like Holbein, but the colors are kind of the same. If they have the same name, they should be pretty similar between different brands. So
for some reason I found that maybe I just haven't been through much, but like Liquitex was like very coverage wasn't great, and also it was very streaky and very shiny, like super shiny.
oh yeah, I mean some colors of Golden can be quite shiny as well. Like that Van Dyke Brown I was mentioning is actually pretty shiny. I mean, but I'm gonna like hit these with a coat of varnish anyways, and that will just like go right away. It will just disappear. I mean, I find that a lot of paints these days are like way too flat finish, so they look good on photographs, but in person they look really dry and dull.
No, I have to mix a lot of those paints with inks, which
Yeah.
I probably do anyways, just to up the saturation and fluidity.
Yeah, like inks, that will bring some of that luster back for sure, and then you get the saturation. But like with artist paints, like the saturation is like the most saturated colors that you can get, and they're way more saturated than you get in miniature paint lines a lot of time. But a lot of times, what you're sacrificing for having high saturation is coverage, basically. So artists always want to have like the highest saturation, the brightest, most vivid pigments, because they know it's hard to get saturation back if you lose it. It's really easy to lose saturation, and you can't get it back through mixing. Like basically, the only way to get it back is to use like transparent ink on top or something like that. So basically, they're artist grade paints. They're specialized to have the brightest, most vivid colors. Like I have this one, like like Monument has the Pyroli red, right? And it's great, but they've definitely made like if you compare it to the artist's Pyroli red that I have, it's like that red is the brightest thing I've ever seen. So this but it doesn't get the same coverage as the Monument paint. So and the Monument paint's still really good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, but yeah, I just like I'm just a bit different. But the thing is, like, I can definitely paint with any paint you put in front of me, honestly. Um, you just want to know what the properties are of the paint and how to deal with that. So like high coverage paint, I might choose different approaches than these low coverage paints.
Yeah. Hey, time check, Matt. You got about 9 minutes. I'm going to switch over to Aaron, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to show basically like the separating things into two halves, and then I was going to do this color and everything so we can see it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I realized that like his hands are actually reflective too. So we'll do a little bit of that. And then we'll come back later and I'll show the stage where we paint the Terminator on and do some specular highlight, which so we know what the Terminator is, but the specular highlight is the reflection of the sun in the metal. So it's very tight, like either dots or lines in the metal surfaces, and it's usually coming just from one angle or one direction. So it's like the highlight that's the brightest, brighter than everything else, basically. It's already looking pretty good, actually. Pretty good start. I'm happy. And then if we want to do that sort of glow from above, what we could do is like make this whole area black and then paint a reflection of a glow inside there. And like I was saying, like the Sentinel arm is going to block the light along this band, so it should be all just black in there. And then we could easily just like put a little bit of like a reflection of the glow in that black area that we just painted. So it's pretty easy to add it in. And yeah, Dallas says I should do it. Let's do it. You know, why not?
It's always cool to try to go with the vision of the creator of this and try to see can you get what they're trying to do, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think Matt can.
Valthorn Lillian says, what did you miss? I think Matt was just talking about how Dallas challenged Matt to try to paint the sentinel arm with a glowy energy palm thing and see if he can cast some OSL onto Colossus. So I think that'd be a cool challenge to do.
Yeah, we'll try to have
what
it.
Color would you do? Also,
oh yeah, like what? Yeah, what do you think, Dallas?
Yeah, Dallas's choice.
Oh no, not my choice. I mean, that's the thing. I always imagine red or magenta, like magenta for like the Sentinel glow, or yellow. But unfortunately, like Colossus has red or yellow.
Yeah, we could do magenta. It'd be easy.
But also
magenta's
blue
very
would work.
transparent, so it'd look good.
Magenta, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have lots of options because like a blue glow would also work. Like
yeah, let me see.
I don't really want to do blue because I wanted to kind of like we're using blue in the skin.
Yeah, if you're using blue in the skin, then yeah, stay away from the blue.
It's also sort of like the darkest value, and I think that it would be a lot more punchy if we were using, say, like magenta or something, or yellow.
His glows can be like at least can be yellow, reddish, or whatever, you know.
It can be yellow, red, orange. It can
Orangey,
be Sentinels can be whatever.
They're all
okay. Yeah, I didn't know if Sentinels had like a particular color.
It doesn't seem like they have a lot of different colors. Could be blue, it could be whatever. Yeah.
Comics provide so much opportunity for you to just kind of, play the way you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like a balance between the two, though, because I mean these characters definitely have like the colors they're supposed to be painted, but also there's a lot of wiggle room involved too, where you can kind of make your own artistic choices and stuff.
Yeah, we've gone crazy. Did you see the apocalypse stuff that I did?
Yeah, it looks good.
The conversions.
Yeah, the conversions.
Yeah, with
Like
they're
those
all.
those are just made up. Like Archangel with a skull
Mm.
face,
Oh yeah,
like
and
just
the
made it
everyone
up.
having like the cloaks or robes. That was pretty sweet. Yeah, ties them all together.
Like I always think of Marvel Crisis Protocol as like its own like little universe in the multiverse.
Yeah. Velthorn says it's not okay. Not about the stuff. So okay, before that, Matt was saying how he uses a lot of artist colors that have a lot of saturation, but because they have a lot of saturation, they don't have like the like as good coverage. So then you're kind of sacrificing um the saturation for that ability to cover. But Matt's painting with a lot of some transparent techniques anyway, so it kind of works well.
Yeah, and you can always get better coverage by mixing with paints that do get good coverage. They're usually like less saturated, and there's plenty of those types of paints and artist paints as well. And then the whole idea is that if you want that really high saturation, you basically like paint a pale color underneath. Like it could be white, but it could just be like a pale version of that color underneath, and then you do a transparent layer of the saturated color on top, and it'll just like pop. It'll pop off like really, really, really bright. So that's why we're leaving some pale areas here, because then we can really like punch it up, and I could actually even make them paler if I were to mix white with this color. Yeah, let's just demonstrate that, and then we could pass the rock to someone else.
Okay. What do you
So I'm demonstrating we can put a pale color underneath here, and then maybe I'll bust out some of that pyroli red.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
Which I always look for an opportunity to use that paint because it's freaking really punchy.
Is this
although ink, you can do the same thing with ink. Honestly, it'll be really bright and
yeah. Are you just using white mixed with the red?
yeah, same red. Just add a tiny touch of white. I just have the white on my palette and just like boop boop go.
Yeah.
Right. Of course we could. Yeah, let's actually like add a little bit of touch to some of these other volumes here before we do this. I'll do the gauntlets later. I don't want to take too much time. Yeah, we'll just do those areas, and we'll do the other areas here in a minute. Once. Yeah, so we'll use the pyroli red here. Let's see. Of course, I have my classic. Organizational method where everything's in the same place, so that means it's organized.
You mean it's all in the same bag?
It's all the same place.
It's in the room. Okay, I organize. It's in the room.
All right. So the pyroli red I'm using is this like patch right there, and
on the left,
right here.
Okay.
It probably doesn't come through on camera actually, like just how bright and insane this red is, but
that looks pretty bright. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
It's super intense. But you would have trouble like getting this to cover over black, for example. What we can do is now that we have this pale colors get covered easily, but then this other color, like the red, the dark red, will not get covered as easily by this transparent color, right? So when we blend it, it will just disappear when it goes into the other color. So I'm just brushing towards the other color. It's turning that pale area like really bright. And I'm just thinning this with water. These artist acrylics, the heavy bodies, like they thin really nice with water. They never split on you or anything. Just hold together really nicely. There's a lot of advantages. You know, I can paint with whatever paints, but I do kind of like the how these are not so like ultra matte like we see a lot of times these days. I'm not a fan of the ultra matte paint. The models that are painted ultra matte, they'll look good on camera, which is why paint companies in the miniature sphere are like sort of favoring them, I think. Um, but in person, I don't really like how they look. I want my models to look good in both.
Give me that sexy satin.
Yeah.
I still tell people what you told me, Aaron, like
40 years ago.
15 years
Oh, yeah.
ago. Do you remember what you said
No,
about
I don't
satin?
remember the exact conversation. What did I say?
You said that in all of your commission work, you tend to leave the paint a little satin because it's a little shinier and it looks more expensive.
But if you make it too shiny, it looks cheap, like super cheap. So
It's the perfect. You gotta find the right balance, you
yeah,
know.
you got to find that.
Yeah. That looks a little glossy right now, but it's just because the paint's wet.
Yeah.
You'll see that at paint competitions. Like you'll see really beautiful paint jobs, and then right next to them is, maybe just as good of a paint job, but it's just got that polish to it, and it looks better. Like it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I hear you. Finishes are a thing, to adjust in your pieces.
Like I've seen some models that looked really great online, just like on Facebook or something, and then when I saw them in person, they were painted ultra matte. It was just like, wow, just the colors don't come out as well. Like, it's really interesting.
The mattes, because it's super matte, it doesn't look as rich, and saturated but with this
And sorry.
I was saying it's just on screen, like the backlit like panel, LCD panel helps give it some more of that luminosity. So I think that's why it looks. Yeah.
And also, it's basically like it's because the light is scattering, but with the matte finish. So that means like the more light you put on the figure, the more desaturated it will look as well. So it's like, and really like when they're on display, at a convention or something like that, you're putting a lot of light on those figures. So of course you don't want to like have them be, satin or glossy either, because then you'll have a lot of like hot spots and it will look weird. So there's like kind of a balance. Usually if it's a little satin and then you hit it with a little bit of dull varnish, like matte varnish or whatever, turns out just right.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple questions in the chat and then let's switch over to Aaron.
Yeah, for sure.
Cupidos Pro was asking if anyone has tried the transparent Pro Curl line. And so interesting. I have, and they function kind of like inks. They're very shiny, but they're saturated. But then I think maybe the pigments are either too big or whatever. Like when I try to spray them out of an airbrush, it clogs like immediately. So I would say don't use it with an airbrush, but I think they're pretty cool. I got some.
Or learn to use your airbrush, Anthony. Just kidding.
That too. Aaron's airbrush is like at like 60 psi, right?
Yeah, yeah. If I could have it higher, I would.
Oh my god!
Yeah, you gotta shoot that stuff at high speeds out there.
Yeah, that too.
And it exits the airbrush screaming.
The transparents. One thing I really like about them is if you put white into them, they make the most amazing colors. Like holy crap! Yeah, like I would have never thought of doing that, but I don't know. I don't know if I was teaching a class or what, but I was just like, oh, I wonder what would happen if you put white in this, and it like because the colors are so like saturated, but it does things you're not expecting. Like, but it's really cool. So, anyways.
I haven't tried them. I'm sure they're good. Like all the Pro Curl stuff is pretty top notch.
I have them all right here, and I've been using the transparents a lot for like special effects. Marvel Crisis Protocol, Shatterpoint, Legion, right? I have special effects and lightsabers. And I use them a lot for that because I get that punchiness. And Aaron, you're right. I accidentally one night mixed some heavy body, the heavy body titanium
Right.
from white
Right.
from Procreate into that transparent ink, and man, it just made it.
It's
It just
awesome.
made it punchy and super smooth,
And
like
all of a
butter. It
sudden,
just
it's a
became
little
a
bit more
butter.
opaque. It's like,
Yeah,
but yeah, it wasn't really what I was expecting, but it was a good happy accident, basically.
Have to try it. A follow-up question: do you find they are justified being standalone paints, or would you stick to glazing regular paints?
I don't know. I don't know what a standalone paint is because like
Yeah.
Like,
every
would you
every
use it? Well, yeah. Do you use it for?
every
Okay,
tool
do
in
you
the
use it for anything?
toolbox, right?
Yeah, but do you use it like for in your typical painting rather than doing like effects like lightsabers and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be using it here in a little bit on some like this transparent blue. I'll be pulling out in a moment for painting black.
Mm-hmm.
Like once we get to my part, but yeah, I'll definitely I mix it into things like you like Anthony. I'm a big fan of mixing inks into my opaque paints as well, and the transparents do that. Like I mix them in there. So like the transparent brown, I think I mix that transparent brown into everything. Like
Really?
even like steel. Like I put it in the metals. I put it in um uh like some of the skin tones. I'll put a little bit of transparent brown, especially skin tones, because like what you guys are talking about, like for flesh, I don't like matte paints on flesh because I want that luminosity of life.
Yeah.
I want that like so. I put a little bit of that transparent brown in. It just amps that luminosity up a little bit.
Cool. Andrew asks if would use a particular varnish to change the finish on a figure.
Yeah, I mean, like usually if you get a little bit of too much satin or glossiness to a figure, you just use a matte varnish on top. And so a lot of these artist paints, they do have a bit of a glossiness to them. But I'm already gonna hit most models with a matte varnish so that it unifies the finish and makes it all look the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Be
cool.
careful with the ultra matte though. The ultra matte may be a little bit too matte. So then
Yeah, I
someone
agree with
might
that.
mix the
Yeah.
ultra matte, the
Ultramat
AK
is
ultra matte.
like will make it blotchy kind of sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, if you apply too much matte varnish on something, it can turn like it can be like almost like silvered or like foggy. It's
Yeah.
bad.
Ghosting.
The rule I always say is like spray it just enough to make it look consistently wet, and then stop, and let it dry before. Because this you can go the other way where it's like, oh, you're worried about putting too much on and you just kind of like give it a really light coating, like a dusting. If you do that, you'll get like these little like pocket like little dots of matteness on it. That looks bad too. So there's a balance that you gotta run.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's switch over to Aaron.
Okay,
You ready, Aaron?
I think I am.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
We're switching over. Val Thorne has another question about not being able to get a smooth blend on Pro Acryl. I haven't had blending issues with Pro Acryls, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
You'd have to describe like how the blend is going wrong for you.
Yeah.
And even then, it would be hard to diagnose blending things just through a chat. But
Yeah, is it also like so Valthor, if you want to give some more information on that, or is it like sometimes I find that I get maybe some paint chunks, like dried paint pieces, that kind of make it hard to blend because it's a dried piece of paint, but
yeah, and sometimes
like I assume that you can blend just fine with other paints, right?
yeah, we'll see if he responds back.
I'm Two Bros blending Procure right now.
Yeah. You're a little bit off.
Oh, sorry.
Camera.
Hold on.
Nice. Wait. It looks good, man. So last time I feel like we saw it was before you added the gold.
Yeah, I started the gold. So here's what happened last weekend. I had a moment of clarity and panic, and I was like, I gotta move, and I can't just wait for the show, because if I do that, I'll never finish the rest of these models. And with my workload right now, thanks to one company in particular, it's crazy. I won't mention anyone, Dallas, because I don't want them thinking that you're messing up my MCP game. But no, I'm just kidding. I have bills to pay, so I got to work. But so I started on this, and worked a little bit more on his buddy here. But then I also got paint on this dude. I forget his name. Wolverine. So when my buddy Bryce was out here for the weekend, every once in a while people come out and visit me. I get to do that. And then this is, who's this? Luke Cage. So he just got started, basically. I kind of got, a little bit of time in on him, maybe more on the pants than anything else. But it's just like, I got to get paint on these models. And one thing's for sure, this dude has a lot of muscles. Like, he has muscles on top of muscles. And then the last one, which I really haven't done anything on yet, is Wolverine or Black Panther, and this is the one I've been waiting for. So I'm super excited to see how Dallas takes on Black, because right now this is just a Zenithal Prime, and then I put what is the purple from Contrast? Whatever the purple is that they have. I just put that over it, and it kind of gives them that little purpley tone, and I've got to obviously highlight things up. So anyways, that's kind of like what I did over that weekend, but it brought me up to, like, those models aren't finished, but that brings me up to 9 models out of the 10. So that's super.
What's your 10th?
Yeah. Super.
What do you do for your 10th?
10th is that one dude. Shoot, I forgot his name. Oh, the only model.
We should just start guessing.
Yeah, you can just start spitting names out. It's the only model I did box art for, and so it's Pyro.
Pyro.
Yeah, but I don't want to give him his like normal paint job. I want to do something different. So, anyways.
Okay.
So I've got basically I'm doing the golds.
That's not true.
What's that?
You did box art for more than Pyro.
I know, but I'm not painting it for my team.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like sort of. Well, I mean, I picked models that I liked, but I also picked models that I hadn't painted yet. So, anyways, yeah. But so I have painted Black Panther, but not this one. Yeah. So. Yeah, I've done
That only makes me paint terrain.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of box arts, but I love painting the terrain. Are you kidding me? It's super rad. So I've been using so basically just a bunch of monument colors. I got the Flameon set. So this color mixed with black for my deepest shadows, and then some of this orangey brown up to yellow ochre, and then I jump up to bright yellow ochre. So it's kind of like my first colors are basically these two, and then a little bit of black mixed in. And then I want to make it kind of shiny, I have to jump in, what would you call it, value, to a much brighter color. So so it shows up. Basically that's it.
So but what are you base coating it in?
These paints. So just kind of like I put all the paints on at once. So it's a little. So this oh sorry, not that one. This one, dark green brown. This is like this is the darkest color from Flameon series, which I was kind of surprised on, but it works great. But I add a little bit of black to it to get it a little bit darker, and then I just kind of jump between that and maybe this color or this color to kind of get my base coat on. So in that case, you're seeing that like right here. So darker on the side of the helmet, where kind of the helmet is in the sun. Oh my goodness!
The Twitch guy.
Are we restarting the Twitch stream?
Yeah, this Twitch stream is coming back online. We'll be coming back online here. It's up. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. OBS completely crashed because I was talking too much. So, anyways. So yada yada yada. I finished all these models, or I didn't finish all these models. I started a few extra models. I'm now back on track. I'm happy about that. I'm not worried. And so I started most of the. Actually, I changed my fire down at the bottom a little bit, so it looks like smoke around the outside edges. I don't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea, but and then I'm gonna do some stuff with papers flying back here, probably next stream. So.
That's cool.
It'll be pretty cool. But anyways, I got the base coats on the gold, and now I'm just kind of adding to it. So, all right. So we are recording. All right, good. So anyways, I'm just kind of like I've got base coats on with our two darker colors, and now I'm putting on much brighter colors. So like you can see, like say right here, I think that the light coming in this way will land right about here-ish, somewhere like that. Just making sure there's not some weird flat spaces. But you can see that that color shows up really well against these other colors, right? And so if you make the mistake of going like half of that color or just slowly building your way up to it, it's not going to show up at all. So you kind of got to go punk rock. If you're a blendy blender person, it's kind of feels dirty, but you just got to get over it. I'll put some edging on here. I always tell people, like in my N&M classes, do what you know and then figure out the rest later. Like you may not know exactly how it's going to reflect, but just do the things that you know 100%. Light's going to hit the edge of this thing, so there's going to be some light reflecting off that. So,
Yeah.
It also helps define the area, right? So, I had the awesome pleasure of taking Mark Maskelin's class a couple years ago, and that was one thing that he said. He goes, first you must define the miniature. So don't worry about other things. Make sure everything's legible. And then you can do whatever you want, really. So,
when you do non-metallic metals, do you have some like guidelines or principles that you use to help guide you, or do you have or do you kind of wing it, or what?
Yeah, I have lots of rules because I'm not very good at this. So I have all these rules to keep me safe, and then I can branch off of them when I want to.
Yeah, you want to share some of your rules with us?
Yeah, your rules.
Here's the first thing. Yeah. Don't paint non-metallic metal. No, I'm just kidding. So the first thing, and one thing that is my first fundamental of non-metallic metal is basically this. So I believe that light shining down on something is in the shape of a circle. So if you put a circle of light on something, that's the first little thing to making it look believable. Now, with reflections and stuff, those can turn into squares. They can turn into other shapes and stuff, but oftentimes it's a circle. So, and that happens on not only big flat surfaces, but it will happen on your edge highlights. So, like if I've got, let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit here. So if I put like little edge highlights on this leading edge of this piece of metal right here, okay, and that's the only highlight I got on here so far. Oops. Then I can dot it with a perfect circle. Or try to make a perfect circle. And that will look very believable. Because like if you go out to your car on a sunny day, look at the panel lines on your car. There'll be these like lines of light, and then all of a sudden a little spark, like right where the light is reflecting back at you. It will be a perfect circular shape. Again, that could change by the shape of the thing, but on generalizing it, that's how it works. So there, if you don't have those circles, you start not believing that there's light coming down on there. Anyways, that's one of them. The other one is so the shinier the metal gets, the more it kind of moves on the surface of your model. So like, have you ever been driving in your car and you see a big building that's like all mirror glass or metal, and as you're driving past it, the sun shining on that building follows you all the way down the building. So like it might be blinding you right on the side of you, but like 10 feet back, it's the perfect gray shade of the building, right? There's no light there. So is there no light there, or is the light actually following you? Anthony, go. We don't know. So technically the light is following your vision. So when people talk about like, how do I set up my non-metallic metal? Like, where's the light source? Where's the light going to hit? Where should I put that main like spark of light? Like on this, I put it right in the center part of that helmet. That's based on where my vision is looking at the model. So I can't really show you here. Let me switch cameras. Maybe I can kind of show.
Are you saying like, because
So
like it's like with the true metallics, when you paint on true metallics and you move the figure, then the light changes?
the light will move on it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
so our eyes see a flat, like wherever there's a flat surface on your model, that's where the light can reflect back in my eyes. And so on a curved surface, like say it's a perfect sphere, that flat surface will only be in a small spot on that sphere, and it will be in my direct line of sight. So is this making sense? So like right where, if I'm looking down at this model, like everyone goes, how do you set up that light? I always say you always hold the model about a foot away and a foot down. That's where the light's going to be hitting. That's where you're going to see the light. So no matter where your lighting's set up, it will try to reflect back in your line of sight, right? So that's something that you can kind of count on and make a lot of assumptions as far as how your metals work for there. The other thing is on certain things, like spheres, the light will hit, it rolls forward again to wherever it's flattest towards your line of sight, and then that's where it shines out. So again, it's a tricky subject because there's lots of things that will change that, but just in general, that's the way it works, at least from what I've seen. The other thing is, so we've got like these flat surfaces right here on his legs, right? I put the highlight on the top, but my rules for light actually is the highlight would go on the bottom. And we've all seen that, the reverse highlighting on metals. So the light comes down, it hits up at the top of the flat plane, and it moves down to the bottom, and then it can't go any further, so that's where it reflects out. Again, that's one of those rules you can break. You can be like, oh, I don't want it to do that. I want it to reflect the other way because it looks better. So that's where you become an artist and just change things. But if you kind of follow the rules enough, it will trick you into thinking like everything's right. All is right with the world. This is like perfectly done. It's good to go. So as soon as you start adding in all the reflections and stuff, that changes a little bit. But the truth of it will be this part right here on the head will always be the brightest area. Even if I have all these little lines like mimicking things off in the distance, reflecting off of the helmet. I could have shadows running up through there. But at the end of the day, there will be more light in this general area than anywhere else on the helmet. And then that way that shows my spark of light, like the explosion of that light. So I had another one. I just forgot what it was. Anyways, that's my rules. I can forget them as quickly as I can remember them. The other thing is, if you want it to show up really, really well, saturated color works wonders. So if you feel like you're starting to lose, like a lot of times we can get into that thing where it's like, if you ever gone from a shadow and then blended it right up to the highlight and there's no midtone at all, I'm really good at that. So I have to tell myself constantly, make sure that my midtone color right here doesn't go away, because it is a very saturated orangey brown. And so that's going to be like a really bright color that helps you see my gold, So, and then probably the last thing is you really don't want to have, let me see here. So we've got yellow ochre, maybe this yellow. These two yellows are pretty close to each other, or even these two colors. They're a little bit different, but you want bigger jumps between your colors because otherwise you just don't see those two colors. Like it's too smooth of a blend. So the other thing is if you're doing super shiny stuff, the light will move around a lot more and you can play with it a lot more. If it's more of a dull metal, it will be more zenithal. So that makes it a little bit easier. If you're just getting started, you can still do kind of your contrast of colors, but you don't have to worry about, reverse highlights and just doing all kinds of weird stuff because you don't necessarily need to do that. So
Yeah, would you say that non-metallic metals requires less blending than a less reflective surface?
yeah, it could, and actually it probably should.
Yeah.
It's really hard. You got to make sure that it doesn't look unfinished at the same time. Like it can end up looking a little gamey. Like by gamey, I mean, like when we do gaming figures, kind of like what we're doing here. Usually you just have a highlight and it's just a straight highlight and you can see that line across the model. You're not trying to blend it in or soften it up or anything. So when you're doing non-metallic metal, but you want it to be like really high end, you do have to soften it a little bit, maybe with some glazing, but it's not, you definitely want the streakiness to come through because that's what makes it look realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it depends on the style because you can get like the style of non-metallics that need a lot of blending, like flame-ons
Yeah.
stuff. It's like
Oh,
super
his stuff
blended,
is
but
like ridiculously blended.
it's cool. But it looks like a Photoshop render rather than realistic because it has no reflections.
It has,
No like.
there's a beauty in it. It's not technically like if you're going for like hyper realistic, it's definitely not that. But I also get why people love it because it just looks
It's
looks
impressive.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
looks
I
really
think it's
impressive.
cool. It looks like it was rendered by a computer.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
It's cool seeing him also paint like on like Instagram or whatever, and like how he does it. You're like, okay, fine. It's not.
Yeah, he does. It's just all like little lines, and then like all of a sudden
Yeah.
they blend together. But like he did like he had posted something. He like stippled a base, and he goes, "This is what I used to do for a living. I did stippling for like art, like advertisements and stuff." And he goes,
Oh,
"So if you
really?
think this is new for me to do like these fine, super fine, detailed things, you're wrong. Like that's what I did. I just do it on miniatures now."
Okay.
So he's
cool.
cheating clearly. He's a cool guy. I met him. I got to meet him last year at Adepticon. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm Polish too."
You're Polish?
Yeah, on my
Really?
grandmother's side. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got to talk to actually Kaha, and she asked me where she's too nice. She asked me where my family was from, and of course, like a good grandson, I had no clue. And so I asked my dad. He didn't know, and I'm like, crap, I got to ask my aunt. She's gonna be upset that we don't know about our own family. Guess what? She didn't know. Like none of the family knows, but she mentioned a couple towns, and Kaha actually drove through one of them and sent me pictures.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, you gotta be kidding me! Like I'm nobody, Like, and she just did that. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh. We should go to Contrast, and then you can go see our ancestral home.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to like Monte San Savino and stuff, but it's like, honestly, if I'm gonna go once in my lifetime, it would probably be a Polish show just to see a little of my heritage, even though I don't know much about it. Which it sounds really bad, but my family was never like. My family was just like survive and be a good person, type of thing. Like it wasn't so much about like, oh, we're from here and that's why we're cool or something. It, like my grandma made great pierogies. Oh my gosh. If you don't know what that is, I'm sorry.
I love a good pierogi.
Yep. So I can bring up very quickly that shininess right here in the helmet, and then maybe I'll switch to this is the best color ever made, besides the bright pale yellow from Flameon. So good. Very much like ice yellow, but maybe a little bit whiter. I don't know. But it's still got enough yellow in it to just pop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just put a little bitty dot right there. And maybe.
Do you get any grittiness on your monument, on any of your monument paints, especially like yellows?
No, not actually. Um, Chimera was the worst for me, and I don't.
Yeah, I got a lot of grittiness on Chimera.
Yeah, but I
too.
haven't really found that on the yellows for Monument. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things like the person who I'm guessing that's the person I did a private coaching with just recently. But I just don't know your screen name. But
Oh, about the
yeah,
how you
how it
help
wasn't
with stuff?
it wasn't working for him, and I think
Yeah.
like sometimes like I know in my painting journey I've had times where paints just didn't work, and then all of a sudden they do. You know, like is that because I grew into it? Is it because the paint got better? Who knows? It just didn't work at first, and now it does. And sometimes you just gotta accept it. You know, that's why I always tell people don't throw away paints when you think they're no good, because you never know when you're gonna be buying them again. Because all of a sudden they're the best thing you ever had. So.
I I find it also has to do with your environment a lot. So if you're in a very dry area or
Yeah.
a very humid area, it changes the paint, and sometimes it's
Oh, it
yeah,
full
like
on messes with you. So here's the
dude,
crazy thing, Anthony. When I first started doing commission painting, um, I that was the first time that I was painting all day long, and I would notice like in the middle of the day, like maybe in the morning, I was a blending god. Like I could do no wrong. Like it was just like, oh, the paint's working great. I've got this. And by the afternoon, I couldn't blend anything. And I'm like, what happened? Did I like all of a sudden I suck at painting? Like, I'm regressing by the hour. And then I realized that it was actually my environment had changed, maybe just
yeah,
a little bit, and it doesn't seem like just a little bit would matter, but sometimes it does. So it is what it is.
yeah. Hmm.
So you got to remember that too. Sometimes it might just be maybe your humidity is way off, your barometric pressure's wonky or something, and it's just not letting you get the paint to work quite right.
Yeah, you got to be really careful, like if it's hot and dry, or if it's just hot and you have like a fan in the room, that will mess up your
The
blending
fan
really
will,
fast.
the fan definitely does. Yeah, you're right, Matt.
Yeah, like I'm lucky to live in Washington State, which is kind of like perfect for painting because it's very moderate humidity, moderate heat. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
kind of ideal. We don't have to worry about as many variables. But man, when I go to Vegas, I gotta like it's like you kind of gotta adjust a little bit. You gotta make sure that you're adding a bit more water. You're more aware of like how wet the paint is on the brush and stuff like that,
Right.
Yeah.
and just make those adjustments. But I think it's a lot harder if you're trying to like water your paint down to a specific consistency on the palette or something like that. Like
It's almost
I always,
impossible because like what is that consistent? And then you use half of the paint and it's a different consistency
yeah,
now.
it's different by the time you get to the end.
Or
And,
by the time you actually start using it. So
yeah.
it's So either A, you got to figure out how to use it in that environment without doing anything weird, or B, you just got to change your environment a little bit. Like get a humidifier or a dehumidifier. Try that out. It definitely seems like overkill, but it's not. Like if you're painting a lot or you just want your paint to work, it's worth figuring out because it'll make your life a heck of a lot easier.
Hmm.
You can also adjust your moisture. You can learn to adjust the moisture of the paint in the brush itself.
I do that with my
just, like,
tongue.
Yeah, I touch the water. You'd like touch the meniscus of your water, and you can just barely like add a little bit of water to the paint in the brush.
So I used to have this thing like I'd have the paint. This is no good. Don't Liz will yell at me after this, but you shouldn't lick your brush, but I do, and it keeps my brush super fine. Usually I do it when there's no paint on it, but I found like if I'm blending and then I want to get I need it to get a little bit thinner for a glaze, I will put it in my mouth, and depending on how I hold my tongue, it will put less or more spit on the brush.
Oh my god, Darren. Come on.
Bam! That's how it's
Just use
done.
the water cup, man. You gotta learn. What are you doing?
So one dude, one brush.
You should, Aaron, just spit in your palm,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he's that.
Yeah, just Hawk
I'm
Tuah
the
on
Hawk
it.
Tuah boy. But yeah,
Liz finds it very attractive.
yeah, she
Aaron.
does. She actually told me that the other day when I asked her to marry me. She was like, "You know what? I'm only saying yes because of the way you work that brush." And I was like, "Whoa, watch it,
Whoa.
watch it, lady." But yeah. So the other thing is with non-metallic metal, my other role is really paying attention. I mean, Matt brought this up before. Paying attention to where your light's coming in, and then what flat surfaces maybe are getting hit with that light. Figuring out which way the highlight's going to go. Like I said, I put the highlight up higher on this leg because I just thought it would look better than further away. So sometimes I run my highlights so that they all roads face back to the face. It doesn't always have to be that way, but that sometimes helps. Like I'm directing you with my non-metallic metal towards the face. Another thing that metals do is they have a flow to them. So like people talk about, like I had a friend who would always call it, it's like water. It's like you pour water on the head, and however the water runs down the model, that's how the light runs down. Not quite true, but it's something similar. So when I was at the Chicago Museum of Art with you guys, actually, that one year, we went. I don't know if you guys came down to the armor part of the museum, but we were in that part, and I was taking pictures of all the armor, and like I had this idea that like, okay, so if you have a highlight up here, maybe it runs down and it kind of follows the arm and it follows down this way. It's not going to like stop and move, it's not going to come down this arm and then go down like this and then come out this way. It's going to follow a straight line, kind of, or a curvy line down the arm. And when I was looking at the armor in the museum, that's exactly what the light did. So there's a flow to it, and there's sort of a beauty in that, right? So if you can find a good flow with your armor, so like say I've got this light right here on the head, and then it jumps down to these little things, and then that curves it downwards, and then it hits this thing and it curves that way, and maybe then it hits the belt, or it keeps going down the leg, whatever it is. You can kind of do that. So I don't know. Little things like that are really good. The other thing is sometimes, maybe like I have a choice here. Put the light on this side of the facing of this piece because it's flat, but then this side is flat too. And technically with the light hitting the face this way, I think it's like 50-50. So which side should I choose? But maybe it looks better. I already made this darker, so maybe that looks good. Like it just has a good feel to it. So it may not be right. But how many things have you seen in real life that are obviously correct because it's a real life thing you're looking at, but they look horrible?
No, but I think, I mean, I hear you. And the first thing I want to say is, Aaron, I think that like your point about observing like armor and making like taking away points about how light acts. I think that's a really important skill for painters to do, is just to like observe other art and the natural world, see what happens. But I also think that like for the armor, that's like an armor like stationary armor in a museum with set lights.
Correct.
But in the real world, when things are like moving around, they're moving around, there's reflections everywhere, like it's a little chaotic. And so I think with metals, metallics, you can get away with some of that.
So there's
but
a
like
lot of room
I actually use armor in a museum as something that you should be careful about basing your non-metallic metals off of,
right?
Because in a museum you're going to have a ton of different lights illuminating it, right? There's going to be like a bunch of lights in that case illuminating the armor,
right?
But if you paint it like that, but your guy is like outside underneath the sky, like it's not gonna look correct, right? So it's like it's much better to find pictures or reference of that armor in a place that similar to what you're trying to paint. Like I always say, you should like if you just type in like, you know, medieval armor into Google, you're gonna get like a bunch of like product shots because they're trying to sell you like armor,
Mhm.
like armor, or you're gonna get shots like of armor in museum or whatever. But if you type in medieval reenactors into Google, that's going to give you some really useful reference because you're going to have people outside, like underneath the sky, and you're going to be able to see like very clearly that like there'll be that white highlight. It will only be on one half of the figure,
Yeah.
you know, of the person. It might not even might not even be able to see it at all because it might be on the back of the person or on the other side, you know. So I don't know. That's just how I look about it. You can make, I mean, non-metallic metals can look good, regardless. But yeah, I just
Well, that
try
being
to.
that,
I just find that it helps me answer questions about like,
yeah,
oh, should there be that be there? Well,
maybe. Also, it doesn't
imagine.
look good. Maybe
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Well,
Well, I had
well, the thing is, you can make that sun be wherever you want it to be.
right.
You know, you're the artist. You get to make the choice. But so you might want to like decide, you know, a position that's going to set the model off well. You
Yeah.
know, it's kind of how I approach it. But you know, of course, you want to make things look good. Of
Well,
course.
in that
I
point,
like that mix of ideas y'all have there. Whereas like Matt's like definitely like look at the reference, and I think we all agree with that. But then Aaron said something very interesting where do what feels right, not what is accurate. So you're taking that mix of like that this is what it looks like in, like I want to do like SCA and Battle of Nations would be good references for armor, right? So like look at those people reenacting and see what it looks like at dawn or dusk or noon, and then like get that inspiration, and then that like what Aaron is saying,
put the best of
this
both
isn't
worlds.
correct, but man, it looks really good on this miniature that I do it.
Yeah.
Like if I put the highlight here, it just creates the composition or sells the flow.
I think with non-metallics, your brain is trained to interpret what's shiny or not. You know, you just know. So I feel like when you paint non-metallics and it looks right, then it's
Then it's right.
probably right. If it looks wrong, then it's probably wrong. You know,
I
and oftentimes like it doesn't work until you get like the composition I'm talking about, Dallas, or like you're getting
But like
the
if
light.
it does look wrong, like how do you decide what's making it look wrong?
yeah.
Right? We want to actually like to understand what
Yeah.
that is, you know. So like one thing that I found is that, you know, if you have that bright dot that Aaron was talking about, if it's like, you know, that's going to show up on every one of your edges. But if you have that dot in one place on one edge and then the next edge, its dot is like in a little bit different place. They don't line up. It's like
Yeah.
actually inconsistent. It looks wrong to our eye.
Yeah, that's that. I think I think usually when non-metallic metals don't look right, it's that consistency issue.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
and then
that's
your eye
definitely one of
tells
the
you it's
issues. Yeah.
that can't be, like that can't be in real
It
life,
doesn't feel
and
right or
therefore
whatever.
it doesn't sell the effect. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
it will
usually what
pop out your eye. Your eye will be like, "Oh my god, I can't stop looking at that," and it looks. I don't like it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like a beacon of wrongness. Well, and
the
that's
thing is, if you're learning it, it's like you can't just be like trusting your feelings, right? Because
But
you don't have
you don't
enough
have that
experience. Like
feeling.
Aaron, you can do
yeah,
that because
yeah.
you've been doing it for so
Right.
long. You know, you don't have to think about it anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Um,
think
anyways,
Well, yeah, I think like you paint enough and you've seen enough like situations that your eye tells you that it's right, and but yeah,
Even when
it
it's
comes
wrong, it will
agree.
tell you that it's right. Like that's really
I
what
don't
we're
know,
doing
but
is
if
we're trying to trick our. So we're our own hardest person to trick, right? When you're creating the effect, you know what you did. You know it's not real metal. So if you can fool yourself, you probably fooled everyone else. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, this looks like crap. Like I don't know what I'm doing. But it is what it
Right.
is.
But I think that like I don't know like sometimes with non-metallic metals like you may break a rule because or that a light may be maybe still consistent but it may not be I don't know there's something a little different about it
Right.
or your brushstroke goes a certain way that like it might be like a mistake, but then it looks good. But because I feel like in the real world, when there's motion and there's stuff around in the environment, that it can like you can get reflections and stuff that you wouldn't get like in a studio with like a guy wearing armor,
Right.
you know.
Like you can
So,
have some bright spots, like if you and like reflections in the armor, right? And it's fine, but I think that it really applies to that specular highlight, that bright spot that Aaron was talking
Yeah.
about, you know. And also, if you do like maybe make a bright spot in one spot that's you deem as like a reflection of some bright object in the environment, you can just imagine that, right? You kind of want that bright object to appear in the correct spots and all the other plates of the armor or whatever that
Yeah, it's got to be
are facing that same
consistent, right?
direction, right?
Like a consistency
Yeah,
in
so it's
that.
like, yeah, consistency is more important than like, you know,
Reality.
yeah. Well, the thing is, like, you're making the reality,
Yeah,
right? You're the
yeah.
artist,
Yeah.
you know. But if you're an inconsistent artist, it's not gonna look right,
Right.
you know.
And it
So,
could be perfectly blended or perfectly painted, but it's just not
yeah.
right. So it will never be right.
Like as we talked about, like blending is like much less important in non-metallic metals, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So here's one rule that, or not really a rule, but just something I've noticed, and it goes back to your point, Matt, of looking at actual Knights of Armor, because I didn't just look at Chicago Museum of Art, but it just gave me that idea, and so when I would do non-metallic metal classes, you ask people what's like the core of non-metallic metal, and people will say every time, oh, it's light to dark. So you have to have, from black to white on every panel, because that's what non-metallic metal is.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people think it is. So like in this case, like say on this little upside down ultramarine symbol, I would have light to dark, and then there's a little click on here. So that would be light to dark on that, and then light to dark on the bottom piece. And it looks really, really weird. I've seen it done a couple times where it looked really cool, but normally it looks weird. And I was looking at some actual art of, or not art, of a picture of a black knight. And he's wearing this really cool armor, and the sun is shining on him. It's like noon, right? And his elbow, it's black armor, and you can tell because it's all black and it's super shiny. The elbow was perfectly white. Now, is he wearing a yellow or a white elbow pad, or was that a black elbow pad that's completely reflecting the light and blinding the camera? And it had no contrast on it. It was not light to dark. It was like white with a little gray at the bottom. And I was like, it still looks like metal. And why does it look like metal? Because it's in line with all the other metal pieces. So if I wanted to, if I had really bright light, I can make this entire helmet maybe my lightest color of gold. I wouldn't do that because I don't think it would look good. But just for like, reference, you can make an area that's not going almost to black. It just stays in all your highlight colors. But because the colors next to it are using those same colors, but also going light to dark, it works, So
Yeah, I specifically tell my students to not have every plate go from black. You have all the tones in it,
it's the really old
because then you actually
confrontation
have
thing.
like less contrast over the whole piece,
Right.
right? And it's also unrealistic, of course, but like it's actually more contrast if like the areas that are facing away from the light are like from your dark mid-tone to shadow, right? And then the faces that are facing directly at the light, that should be like your light mid-tone all the way up to white, right? So in reality, like to make something look reflective, you want to expand the contrast range. So yeah, your shadows are going to be darker in value, your highlights will go all the way to white, right? But that doesn't mean that all of those tones need to be in every place on the figure, on every like surface.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like when people paint like a tank, and every panel, the top right corner is bright and the bottom left
I was
corner
about
is
to say
dark.
that.
And it's like every
Modulation.
single panel is like that, and it's just like
That's not what
and
a
it
tank
looks.
looks like. It looks kind of cool.
It's not what tanks looks like, right? But it's very striking, especially when it's done technically, like the technicality of the application is there. But it's a very contrived thought process of light on that surface instead of thinking about the entire surface. It's thinking about the individual facets, which
I honestly
it's very interesting.
I honestly think it's like a workaround for people because like it came out of this era of miniature painting where like we weren't considering light direction, like light sources or anything, but we still
Yeah.
wanted to make like
To fake it.
like paint non-metallic
Yeah.
metals, right?
Mm.
So you just kind of faked it, right? But now that we really we want to be thinking about light all the time, um, you know, non-metallic metals, it's actually easier to answer questions once you learn how to paint with lighting, you know, where the highlight should go and things like that. It just becomes a lot easier to understand, in my opinion.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we should switch over to Dallas.
Yeah, we probably
soon.
should. Because I
Boo!
need to learn how to paint black. So.
I want to see how Dallas
Alright.
looks like. I'm gonna.
I don't do
I
anything
think
special.
my
This is
gold's
what I'm
looking
thinking.
Are
okay.
you ready, Dallas? I'm gonna.
I don't have a down camera yet. I'm getting a down camera, everybody.
Where is Dallas? Oh, he's way up there. Oh no. What am I doing? I have so many things. Oh, that was right. That was it. No, shoot. Which one? Dallas Cam. There we go. All right. Woo. And then somehow.
So I'm painting Black Bolt, King Black Bolt from Marvel Crisis Protocol, upcoming miniature. I don't know if y'all seen. Have you seen this one yet, Matt or
I
Anthony?
don't think so.
Black Bolt.
I've seen
Black Bolt.
King Black Bolt. Yeah,
What?
yeah, brand new Black Bolt.
Oh, I know. I've only seen the old Black Bolt.
Oh boy, hang on. I'm gonna put him up against the screen here.
Is he released already?
Nope.
Oh.
Oh wow,
Wait,
that's cool.
so how are you
That's
getting
cool.
all these pre-release models, Dallas?
Yeah,
got an
what's
inside
the
guy.
deal?
I love when people ask that on the MCP page every single time. he works there.
So when I started, so like a lot of y'all's discussion about non-metallic metal, I'm kind of doing the exact same process here. I'm just thinking about it in a less spectacular way.
Right.
And I'm talking about spectacular from a lighting perspective. I did the same thing you did, Matt. I had a zenith, and then I just took a glaze of a blue, of a mix of my special blue mix I have, and I glazed the entire surface. And usually, like with blacks, I love chromatic blacks more than just dull blacks.
What are
A lot
chromatic?
of
What are chromatic blacks, Dallas?
any black where you add color, like most time when you see black, you use grays and whites to highlight it, right?
Yep.
I love putting blues in there. I think blue is probably the most common chromatic black we see in miniature painting, where you start adding like blues into those highlights. You know, you're using those frosty blues and those icy blues to bring up the highlights. I love green blacks a lot too. So I'm actually putting greens into the black. And creating like these really rich, deep greens that still read as black on the miniature. But because most of my Marvel Crisis Protocol, I use a blue. So I made a special blue out of a mix of some Procryl, and I glazed the whole thing, and then I just start shading with black and kind of overtake the whole thing with glazes. And now I'm just going back through with you guys brought up the bright pale yellow from Flameon.
Yeah.
And so I mixed that with a little bit of a heavy titanium white and mixed it in with my blue. And I'm doing the exact same thing, those little spot highlights. I'm thinking about where light is coming from the side of the miniature, and I'm just putting in those little lines to highlight very simply, because this is tabletop, right? But I'm thinking about his thigh is up, so I want that more bright, so there's less black overtaking it. You see more of that blue undertone from the suit, right? It could have been red, I think red black bolt would have actually been kind of interesting to go against this blue
Like a
pillars.
red black, like a red to black.
Yeah, red to black. Yeah.
That'd be cool. I mean, he
Because
could, yeah, because he could be in like a red environment or something, with red lights. Or
yeah, just or just a magenta undertone to the suit, right? Like
Like
you
any
can do
color,
anything.
any color can be used as a black.
something. Yeah.
It's just the colder, darker colors like blue, purple, and green are more common, more likely to be used, just because they're actually darker values to begin with, right?
Yeah, it's just an easier place to start, right?
Yeah,
And your
exactly.
eye kind of reads it. I mean, especially for like comics, I feel like that blue black the blue black is very common in comic books because they used blues um, because of the properties of blues. So I love that blue black in my Crisis Protocol. So I'm literally doing the exact same thing you all are doing, just on a man's little underpants.
Black is oftentimes kind of a shiny color anyway, so you know.
It's kind of a easier color. Yeah, like in some ways it's easier to um, sell that black as shiny, right? Because as we talked about just now, like when you're doing something that's shiny, like a non-metallic metal is an example of a shiny thing, but like you're increasing that contrast range, right?
Mhm.
So like with black, that means that you're gonna have big areas that are just like really dark black, right? Because that contrast range has been stretched. But then you can
Yeah, and
also have those high highlights that are probably really small, like areas
mhm.
really bright, right? Like
So
that black armor that Aaron was talking about.
we had this conversation actually today in the studio. Somebody has a project that they're working on, and it's black, and they asked the question, in my opinion, what percentage of so like black is defined by its highlights, right? What percentage of a shiny surface should be highlights versus what percentage of a dull surface should be highlights when painting black?
Mm-hmm.
And my gut was like 20%, right? Like it's like 20%.
Yeah.
Like you got 20%. You spread that highlight out 20% over the surface, and then you do like a tiny highlight, and then like boom, that's it. You don't want those bing, poppy, zingy, tiny dots in your smooth surface or your smooth element, like a cloth, right? Like a black hoodie or a black pants, right? So like 20%. And then
Mhm.
if I got like black shiny armor, like a black knight, or like uh, you know, who do I got around here that's got black shiny armor immediately? War Machine, um, Ghost Rider's motorcycle. I would
Mhm.
go like more like 10%, right? Or something like that. What do you all have like a percentage that you shoot for between the two blacks?
Hmm.
Well, I think that like it's important. I like as a rule of thumb when I'm painting black, I want. I think it's also important to be mindful of like how much is actually like black paint, like pure black, right? And I always say that you should have like 50% of the surface be that like, pure black, and that really helps sell the black. But as far as like highlights go, yeah, it really depends on how reflective that black is supposed to be,
Mhm.
you know? So if you're trying to paint it like, I think it's actually harder to paint like a really matte flat black. Um, effect on the figure, right? Because that highlight needs to be smaller, but it can't be as bright in value, right?
Yeah, you can't have those like super tiny dots of white on the corners and edges because that makes it feel shiny, right? You want that,
Mhm.
but you also are looking for that. You're constantly searching for that contrast. And I agree, like 50% should be pure black, right? But like,
Yeah,
what's that mid-tone zone? Like, what's the highlight zone, right? Like, that's kind of the question that we were asking today.
yeah, totally.
And and I mean, obviously, the piece can define a lot of different things too. Like, if you want more light or less light, of course. But,
Yeah, I mean, like I think that something that's like really reflective, like a vinyl black or something, that highlight could be like 5%. Like
Well,
it could be really small.
but to me, yeah, because to me, it's not. For me, it's not as much about the proportion of highlight to shadow, but how quick the transition is from highlight to shadow, right?
Okay.
Because like it's like what Ariel was talking about, right? With that like the elbow of the black armor is super reflective, but it's like it's facing the light directly, or whatever, the sun or whatever. So that's gonna like wash out the entire thing, and then when it transitions, I bet when it transitions to that white to black, it goes pretty quick. Otherwise, it'll read as like a gray color, So that's kind of how I
Yeah,
think
you
about it.
gotta have like quick transitions. Otherwise, if you stretch it out, then suddenly, a large proportion of that thing that's supposed to be black isn't black, right?
Then it won't. It'll look gray, or
Yeah,
some
yeah,
other color. So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, gray or blue, depending on your vibe. My black belt is very blue right now, but I'm accentuating it. I'm
Mhm.
kind of like bringing a lot of blue to his forefront. Like,
So are you gonna do a pass in that pure black and like, kind of work it in, and blend
mhm.
it in to that? Yeah, yeah, that's a great approach to it.
Yeah, bring in lots of blue, lots of blue, lots of contrast to the blue, and then I'll black it all up. Like I'll just start putting black in the shadows, and I'll stretch it up with a little too brushy, glazy. Like I'm much more glazy like you are as well, Matt. Like, but I'm still using that second brush to like do it, and just stretching it up over and like sort of toning it all into the black, and then but keep pushing the black down in those shadows. But I'm actually doing, because the pose this, I'm leaving his pectoral like section more blue than black, because I want to draw a focus to the T from his navel to his forehead and shoulder to shoulder. I want to draw focus at T and kind of like give the feeling of like energy building up inside him. Not,
Mm.
I mean, he doesn't enter glow, but like I'm trying to like just tell that story like he's about to just unleash this unholy scream and just rip apart the ground before him.
He's
Mm.
about to bust.
He's about to bust.
Right.
That's cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm about
interesting
at
way
that
to.
stage on mine where I have to paint that Terminator in.
Yeah. All right, Dallas. Is there anything else you want to say about the your black before
About
we?
black? No, we can talk about other stuff.
Okay, then we'll get over to Matt. Do you want to go over to
I
Matt then
mean,
to do the
we,
Terminator?
we can have Matt talk, and then if anybody wants to talk about like, I know we had some conversation earlier about miniature design.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I think people would really find that fascinating because it's not something you hear about quite so much.
Yeah,
Matt, we're on you.
Okay.
You have a lovely shot of your head.
look at that boy's noggin.
Yeah.
Look at the size of that boy's head.
Ed,
Ed, move!
one of the greatest movies of all time.
So, I'm taking that my super dark black, and we've done a little bit of like the really overhanging parts, especially between the legs and the armpit. If the arm is down, it will be black, right? But we want to place that Terminator in, and what we're doing is basically like wherever the blue is touching the brown areas, we separate it with black. So, kind of going like this. See how we're just kind of doing that?
Oh yeah,
Separating it up, right? Doesn't that look like comic booky?
I'm telling you, Matt, we're doing the exact same thing on two different totally things.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, like this is just a good reflective sort of treatment, right?
Is this how you would normally paint non-metallics on non-comic book stuff, or is this mainly just for your comic book style stuff?
This is my comic book style stuff. I would do it a little different on like if I was trying to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was painting chrome, maybe I would do something a little bit like this, but it probably wouldn't be black. It would probably wouldn't be black though.
Mm-hmm.
It would have to depend.
You would go with more dark blue.
Like
Well, I
you
guess it depends
basically
on the
what you
surrounding
want to
surface.
do is like imagine what the horizon looks like, and
Yeah,
that's
the
what it should
surrounding
be,
surface.
like yeah. So there's no right answer is the thing, but when you're doing comic books, it's like yeah, use black because it's their inked, right? Uh, but you can see it's like it's actually quite nice. It's like not too hard to do if you're just kind of painting that sort of line in between them. You can make it a little bit bigger if you want. It feels like it needs a little bit more on these like small areas, like every little pectoral or lat rather. Um, you make the line really thin because the shape is really small. But like here, for example, you could make it bigger like that. And then, we can see exactly what we need to do right here. We have the blue and the brown right next to each other. Let's just find the gap between the two and right. Then I also draw those lines down. The little grooves of the arm of the armor or whatever. Now you might be tempted in this blue area to also paint a dark line through there. But I always say that we want to actually have that area defined by light. So we'll use the specular highlight to show those. Although you can still paint the black into the grooves. Like so. So we'll just try to work through that fast and get going. Now here we see the brown, so that's where we put that in there. So, and then there is this overhanging area, so that should all be black in there. His little Speedo, wherever he's wearing.
Hot pants.
Hot pants. Yeah, the red is not as far along on the back as it is on the front, but let's just do this all at once. And I do think that we see this in that's why more complicated muscle groups are going to have that Terminator show up more often because every volume has its own Terminator going through it.
Okay, we got a question from Cubitzo Pro. Talking about the lights and the shadows, do you guys prefer to mix the same color with all the paints that go on the mini? So like purple shadows overall, or do you choose complementary shadow colors individually?
If you're gonna have like a purple shadow, there isn't I guess there isn't a wrong or right answer there. You want to kind of be consistent though. So for example, if you were doing a more complicated effect, you could have, some areas of the model have green shadows and some areas have purple shadows, for example. but you just want to be consistent as far as that goes. Yeah, and so yeah, you would probably want to use the same shadow color for the different uh, the different elements of the figure. So his like cloak, his armor, whatever. Use the same color because then it shows a consistent lighting, right? But you have to be really careful because if you chose a shadow color, this is why you can't use the same shadow color on every model. Because if you use the shadow color that's like, say, a contrasting color from with the surface that you're painting, it will turn that surface brown when you when you put it in there. It will desaturate it, right? So you have to choose a shadow color that kind of works with all the colors of the surfaces on the model. Hopefully that makes sense. It would definitely make sense if we had examples.
Yeah, you can also like think about cold or warm shadows as well too. So if you keep them in the analogue, like on the color wheel, colors that are close to each other, that could work as well too. But I think
Well, usually like a cold like a colored shadow a lot of times is caused by a colored light. This being example is that generally if you have a colored light source, the shadows that are cast by that colored light source will appear the opposite color on the color wheel. So like if it's a red light, then the shadows will look greenish, right?
yeah, I was mainly more so like talking about like if you want to mix like say like a purple into your shadow to represent a shadow color like a lot of people do they add like the complementary color, so they'll add like purples to the yellows, right? So that you have like purple shadows in your yellows, right? But in that situation, if there's another color that doesn't take a purple shadow well, then you could use another color. You don't have to use the same one. But if they're in the same family, the same temperature, then like it's you like that could also work. But I think it's just pretty dependent though on the other colors and the color composition and color palette too, right?
Yeah, it would be like a little inconsistent, but you can make it work for sure. All right. There's definitely some things I'm gonna have to
But
police a little
Matt,
bit.
you're off camera.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. There's things I will have to police a little bit here, but I wanted to also show it doesn't look perfect at this point, and that's because we haven't gone in with our specular highlight. So for this, like sometimes I like to actually do 2 steps. Maybe we can do that by just using 2 different whites. One being like a miniature paint line white, like this one's AK, which I actually really like this white. It will look very white, okay? But then we come back with titanium white and we can make it brighter even. But so we're gonna do sort of like first we do the we just paint without considering these ridges in it. So we'll go like this. If it gets down to the crevice, you don't really need to worry about it too much. And then we have that light, it will flow along the edges, so like so. Now sometimes people want to like have an edge highlight on the bottoms of all these too, and generally it shouldn't be white, it shouldn't be the same. It could be your bounce light color or something like that. But if you have a groove going through something, you probably shouldn't have a highlight on both sides of it. only be on one side because the sun isn't on both sides of an object ever. So this is like the reflection of our sun. Then, of course, every volume that's facing up towards the sky will have a reflection of the sun, with the exception maybe being in the back, but sometimes we cheat that.
Always cheat.
I mean, we're gonna play a game with you, Dallas.
I'm
You're
telling
like,
you, you
oh,
should cheat.
always cheat.
I mean, I'm going to warn you. I'm going to cheat when we play the game. But I might give you the opportunity to cheat. Who knows what the game is going to bring?
Well, if you're given the opportunity, then it's not really cheating, is it?
Yeah. Well, it depends on who I'm giving the opportunity to.
Oh,
Oh,
a lot thickens.
like a rich soup.
Oh, like some sort of a gumbo.
Like a gumbo.
Hmm.
You're not cheating. You're not trying.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
That's what Jim Rome always said. Famous sportscaster.
See how that like specular highlight just really brings it alive, makes it
Mhm.
flash. Yeah. So it's like you don't really know if it's going to look right until you put this in. You want to make sure.
Yeah. Good.
Well, I mean, you do. You can be confident of it, but like it doesn't look like metallic
Well, I mean,
until you put it in.
no, I think that like non-metallic, like it doesn't look. Oftentimes, it doesn't look non-metallic until you get that one specular highlight in or whatever. That makes that like ties all the lights together and it creates that effect. So I would say don't be discouraged when you do non-metallic metal. Just
It's like gemstones. Until you put the dot in, it's just a weird looking purple thing.
right.
And like things like yellow, like this belt, we could just come in here, and I don't even have to mix this with yellow. I could just place in that white, like so. Notice how it's only going on one side of these shapes, as if the light is coming from the right.
Mhm.
And suddenly that belt buckle looks like it's reflective, right? So it's really a powerful little technique you can use. Is this, but you have to jump up straight to that white, or you have to make a really abrupt change, like Anthony was saying. Like it has to happen really abruptly. You can't go through like a bunch of intermediate stages, mixing the color and trying to blend it and everything.
All or nothing.
It's like no. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now his face is probably the most complicated shape, but luckily we have this big shadow that we're going to be using that we're going to be filling with that cast light.
Yeah, I just put the specular highlights on my black over here, so I'm in the same spot. It's really what brought the black together. Is like, and I jumped up. I went from like this mid blue to like these pow pow. I call them pings and zings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
the sound effects help, right?
Hell yeah.
I always say, yeah. Pew pew pew.
Pew pews. I gotta put on the pew pews.
And yeah, like you were saying, Anthony, do we want to make this red look reflective? Well, we can put this white in here, and we can even, tint it later if you wanted to with some ink. We want to tone it down. So it just does a huge amount to make that look reflective, right?
Oh, it's all about that contrast, baby.
Yeah, man. And then you can see like what's great with white is you can do another pass and just like make the highlight nest it within that area that you hit the first time. And this is just the same white, and sort of furthers that highlight. But we don't want to put that everywhere. If we put it on all of these pecks and everything like that, it wouldn't be these are kind of like in that transitionary area where it's getting darker. We just want to have it nested in the area that's like getting the most light.
Mm.
So yeah, we could maybe like put it here because that's getting a lot of light. Maybe his hot pants. These little bracers. Now I'll probably glaze that with a little bit of ink, so it doesn't look quite as pale. But like I was saying with the earlier, putting in that pale color and then glazing with the transparency, and ink is the most transparent paint you're gonna have. It's really effective technique as well. Now, in reality, we probably wouldn't see the sun on his back because the sun is only in one place on the sky. But hey, we've got it turned around. Maybe we do want to have like a specular highlight going through there just because it looks cool. But, it could be like a cloud up in the sky or something like that. So it doesn't have to be, if you're going for total realism, you probably wouldn't do this, but, this is a comic book.
That's the part I like. I like it when people just start like cleverly, like like it's not realistic, but it looks cool.
And here's another thing
Ooh.
is that because the light flows along edges, it will cross over the Terminator. This always looks good when you have that highlight. Just go over the Terminator along that edge. Like that. And we can see that we did that here as well. This is the Terminator black. It just goes over it. It crosses that line along those edges. Now in these deep areas of shadow, that's where you might have a reflection from below. So instead of having the edge highlight be on top in white, it could be on the bottom in like that brown color or something like that. But we'll do that later.
It's looking really good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm actually like, oh yeah, this is actually working. I wasn't sure. I had a plan, but
That's usually how it
I
works. Like sometimes best
Yeah.
laid plans, you're like, this looks like crap. What was I thinking?
So now I take my titanium white, which is the whitest white that ever whited, and we just put like a little dot in the middle on these edges. You can see how like that is a highlight, even for that bright pure white that we use, the AK white. The titanium white creates a highlight for that. So the titanium white's like your silver bullet. You can always highlight more. Once you go there, you're at the end. You can't highlight any more than that. Although sometimes you can stretch it a little bit further by doing another pass in titanium white, because it will just get whiter.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a goop of titanium white, and that'll make it whiter.
Yeah. Well, just like another layer, yeah. But the goop of titanium white, definitely a thing.
Because it's like shiny and it reflects additional light. It's it's a good trick.
Yeah, that's true. Like titanium white, the artist grade stuff, it will not be matte. It will be like sort of reflective, but you can't even tell because it's so white. But it just looks even whiter, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that cast light like Dallas was wanted to see, right?
Well, yeah, I'll say that.
So to do this, all we have to do is take our AK white. First, we'll paint the glowing object, or at least paint the glowing object white. Anything that glows should be base coated white, because a glowing object doesn't have shadows cast on it. It's casting. Yeah.
It's casting
There's no
light.
shadows on a glowing object. It's casting light of its own, right? Now it's not going to cast light out to the sides because it's like down in this like contained. We might do a little bit because it could be bouncing off of him, but we just kind of drop it. It's going to head out straight and then and diffuse, but this is pretty close. So we made this big area of shadow just for this purpose because we can contain that light just in there.
That's a good
Right. So
good trick for OSL is wherever you're putting the OSL, make it darker around that area because otherwise you're not going to see it.
yeah, it's like, have you ever seen a big fire out in the middle of the day? This
Yeah, it doesn't
example
look
I
like
say.
anything good.
Yeah, you don't see the fire because the sun is just going to overpower it completely. So you want to like create an area of shadow. And actually, like this is the perfect example because it has a big like arm that's blocking the light. So the shadow is very natural, very natural for it to be there. So you can just put it in like that. Now to tie in back to one of the lessons that we said before, we can kind of submit this lesson again, is that and a really transparent paint like an ink, it doesn't affect black. It will only affect lighter, more pale colors, right? So if we take some magenta ink now, or some magenta paint is so transparent that we just use the paint, like quinacridone and magenta is kind of like that. It will just not affect it. And we can kind of see how there's like an area of black separating the cast light from everything else. So let me just come around to the other side. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, we'll just do this side. Let's get, I always start with like my brightest color. So I might actually give this a couple coats of fluorescent red ink. And this is like really, really transparent. It's very weak as far as its coverage goes. But it just adds this punchiness to whatever comes next. So I always like to do that. It's almost like a pink. It's like that fuchsia color, those who were around in the 90s, you know? It's like a highlighter red.
Fuchsia.
So then you'll do, and then you'll do a red on top of that, like another.
Yeah, like I always start with I like to start with with this because it will just make the magenta more intense. And you can also actually like do a little at the end as well.
fuchsia, barely knew ya.
Yeah. I think that white up there might be still
What?
wet.
I was gonna
So,
say, how's that working?
I don't know. No, we're good.
Sweet.
All right. And actually, like, this takes a little bit of time to dry. I'll just hit with my blow dryer real quick off camera. Hopefully that wasn't loud to you guys. Yell in chat if that was like if that blow dryer sound was too loud, because I can avoid that. I can actually mute my mic when they do that.
No,
I'll do that next time.
Wasn't too bad.
Okay. And then I know that this magenta, quinacridone magenta, is like really transparent and very rich. It's rich. Love this color from Golden Paints. And it's quite transparent, so it works great for this sort of thing, you know. So we can actually see it on my thumb. Like really nice color. So again, because it's so transparent, like an ink, it will not affect black hardly at all. And we can just blend it into the black and it will disappear like that. Now if it's covering up my highlight too much, I can always just use a second brush and sort of wipe it away. Or I could come back with white and reapply it. Both work. I use that interchangeably. There we go. And you can see it's like pretty easy. We're just using like 3 colors, you know, but it works really nice.
Quick and
Yeah, that's pretty
dirty,
sweet.
but it doesn't look too dirty.
No, it doesn't. Well, that's basically like what this paint style is about.
Right.
It's like quick, but it doesn't look. It's quick and dirty, but it doesn't look quick and dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be how you want to be painting your gaming models,
Right.
honestly.
I think that's the biggest mistake people make is if you do gaming stuff, it's like, oh well, it's gonna suck, but it doesn't have to.
I don't know.
Like it can look really cool.
And you can practice things that for your display quality
Yes.
stuff. Like the stuff we're practicing on this, it's totally applicable to anything display quality,
Yeah,
right?
it all levels up. You're off camera, by the way.
Like you could imagine like doing that chrome, like you could just, if you had a bigger surface or you took a little bit extra time and like made it look really amazing,
Right.
like, you know, there you go. Like
I
all of the essentials were there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I wanted to share it with everybody on stream.
It's like what
No,
you
that's
got
cool.
2 hours into it, 2.5 hours. It's basically it's just you're spending another 30 hours on it, you know, like to make it like really high end contest quality type thing or something. Maybe not that much.
Well, I don't know. It depends on if you want to win or
Yeah,
not.
that's true. That's true. You could spend the next 400. Take for instance that skink that won a Best in Show a couple years ago. The guy like stopped counting at about 400 hours. So it is what it is, you know.
yeah.
So if you re-hit the highlight on that, Matt, are you going to come back in and put a little bit more of the pink back over it again, or is it just kind of like that's the?
I think in this case I won't because it's reflecting a light source.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've noticed is that if you have white, like nested within an area of really high saturation, it will look like the color. Like that white will look like it's actually colored, even though it's pure white, pure titanium white.
Right.
So like here on this glow here, if we take white and we put it in the middle here, like it will actually look like it's pink, you know?
Because it's like the area surrounding it.
It tricks the eye. It works really well. Like your eye sees it as like, oh, that's what a colored light looks like to my eyes. So if we were to look at like a colored light, it would look like it had an area of white in the center of it. So our eyes just like learned that that's what it looks like, you know.
Interesting.
Valender the Red. How's it going, buddy? Let's see what we got.
It was great. I was worried that like, oh, I mean, I thought I could get this done in the time we had today, but I was, you know, Colossus is kind of big, and we're doing like chrome effect over the whole thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's freaking working.
Yeah.
It's good.
Break it down into something that works quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks pretty
And,
big.
and it's honestly looking even better than I had hoped. So
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. It's always fun painting with you guys, man. Like, it's really
We
great.
get stuff done.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's about I've always said communal painting is the best way to hobby. I hosted paint jams every week back home before I moved out to Seattle, like even like 2 times a week. And even after I moved out here, Matt, you came out to them. I would do Sunday paint jams where I'd make pancakes for everybody, and
Yeah,
you just
dude.
show up and you get fed pancakes. You hang out and paint, leave whenever you want, show up whenever you want.
Paint cakes.
Pancakes, baby. But like, I love communal painting. I love that, like the accountability aspect of it as well. Because like way back when I first started painting, I had a friend who was, I'd show up at the game store. I'd be like, "Look what I painted." And he'd be like, "Oh, dude, that looks dope." And then he'd go home, and like the next week, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, look what I painted."
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh snap!"
Friendly
And there's
competition.
like that friendly competitions. I love that. Like, what'd you paint? Oh, Matt painted that Colossus. I'm like, cool. I painted Black Boat and Karnak.
Yeah, I
I
think
did
also
two.
like it's
I
not like
did
you're gonna show
two.
up. It's not like you're gonna show up to paint night and then just decide, oh, I guess I don't know if I'm gonna paint after all. You know, like
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Somebody,
sometimes you sit down by yourself. You're like, oh, I'm gonna paint, and then like you get 30 minutes in, it's like, I feel like think I'll go play a video game.
Yeah.
It's like you
I
can't
want to
Dude,
go
do that
play a
when you're
video
hanging out with
game.
friends.
I
You know.
I was I was totally like, I don't know. I already painted all my guys. I'm not gonna paint any today. And then like halfway through, I was like, man, I feel like painting now.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of
painting.
addictive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
That's why we do it.
So back in San Diego, we had paint night. We had a running paint night every Friday night for like 15 years. It was insane. And if we missed like 2 in a row, I would start getting grouchy. Like I could just tell I wasn't the most pleasant to be around. And it was like it was all because of paint night. Like then we do paint night again. It was like it was my release, you know. I
So you're addicted to paint night. Is
yeah,
that
it
what you're
was
trying to say?
super good. And then at some point we got crazy and we like put together an entire bar so we can make any drink you could think of. We had the ingredients to make it. And then we grew up a little bit and we didn't have the bar anymore, and it was like, we switched to English tea. Which, by the way, is friggin' the bomb. We had our English friend would make it for us, and like he would do the whole little ceremony and everything. It sounds super
Is it
goofy.
February
It's the
that goes with it?
best drink you'll ever have is English tea. Like when it's
Yeah,
done proper. Oh my gosh.
that
Was it
reminds
how?
me of when I first started working in the Private Press studio. I was working with Mike and Ali
Yeah.
McVeigh,
So they're like
and
tea time.
at tea time, no, like Mike, who was the boss of everybody, he would make everybody tea.
Right.
Like, so everybody got tea at tea time. It was like a ritual. It was like that was our extra little break that we had, and the boss would make it for you. It
Yeah.
was like really, it was a cool little ritual. I miss that.
Yeah.
It was like
How's it
still
how's
in a
it
way.
different?
So
How's English
so you
different?
have to have bone china. Like if you want to do it right, you have to have bone china, and then we
Oh, okay.
used PG tips, but there's lots of different English teas. But then you can't like he would stir it, and then you can't
Yeah.
touch it. Like and then it cools off just to a certain point, and then like you can guzzle it, but it's still hot enough to like it's like perfect. And
Okay.
it's like they put milk in it and a little bit of sugar.
Mhm.
and it's like friggin' the bomb. Like it's like I was like, because I was like, come on, Dave. It was English Dave, and I'm like, come on, Dave. What is it with English tea? Like, you guys are always talking about it. Is it really that good? And he's like, yeah. So we went out, we bought the mugs, we got everything just right, and then he would do his thing, and he's like, you can't squeeze the tea bag because it will make it like the acids come out and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. So it was like it's kind of one of those waiting things, I think. And but oh my gosh, it was so good. Like we would get there and be like, Dave, is Dave coming? Because if we made it, it wasn't nearly as good as when he made it. Like
I always squeeze the bag and like
you're not supposed to do
at the
that.
wrong time.
You're supposed to just dunk it in there and let it set. Like that's like the best way. But I mean, obviously, like when Dave wasn't around, I'd be squeezing the bag because I just want to do it quicker.
Some more caffeine, right?
Yeah,
More
yeah.
whatever.
But you had to have like
You know what the other thing is? Like, is British gingerbread.
yeah.
Man, like he came back from Britain one time and brought gingerbread from Britain, and holy crap, man!
Yeah.
Like,
You're like, it
Really?
it's
can't
so
be
good.
this good.
You can't not get it in the States. It's just
Yeah.
like
What is it like though? How's it different?
oh man, it's kind of thick and like
Is it crunchier or softer or the same?
it's how like toffee, how is that sort of like
Hmm.
crunch
Pop to
and
it,
sort
yeah.
of like give to
Mm,
it's
that
like
Yeah.
that,
good.
man. It's like freaking good.
That's crunch. Like really?
Yeah.
I mean, gingerbread is kind of addictive, like because you don't have it very much either, right? So it's just got that weird flavor, the gingery flavor, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They just got and it's like strong too, strong ginger, but it's also like is also very sweet as well at the same time, and that's just like perfect.
Hmm.
Hello, Vampire Painting Studios. Welcome to the chat.
Oh, it's 10:47, so we're almost done the stream. So I think we should maybe switch over to Dallas.
Q&A with
to
Oh,
Dallas,
talk
yeah.
Dallas,
about
where are you at?
I'm right here. What kind of questions do y'all want to talk about? What do y'all want to talk about?
Oh yeah,
Adepticon,
Dallas.
the game? You want to talk about? People should definitely be ready for
Want to talk about?
Adepticon.
Well, did you have some specific character developments, the miniature that you wanted to share about, Dallas?
Yeah, like
Kid is allowed to share.
what was your like just share a story about like miniature development, how like the ideas came about, and like that really like highlights the work you do.
So so the way our flow works is we definitely start with like
Mhm.
our schedule, right? We come up with like we're doing Sandman, Black Bolt, Karnak, right? We're you
Mhm.
know Spider-Man, and from there it goes to and Schick writes like a little brief, right? So Will Schick,
Mhm.
our president of product development, he actually has a longer title but can never remember it.
Hmm.
And he like for Marvel, it's a lot of fun because it just comes down and I get like Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. It's Amazing Spider-Man. He goes all over the board and he does this, and then I go over that and I read it, and then I go to we have a little meeting every week that we call concept jams.
Mhm.
It's on Fridays, and it's our concept artists, our two art directors, and then we invite anybody else. So like our sculpting and engineering team will come in and join, and I'll go over the brief. I'll be like, this Spider-Man, it should be like, super actiony. Let's do some poses, and we just start drawing poses,
Hmm.
right? And we've had characters where we'll draw like 8, 9, 10, 15 poses trying to capture like the action and
Mhm.
the the character, right? And then sometimes you have one and done. Sandman, like I got Sandman here on the desk, so this is what made me think of that.
Yeah.
I'm working on this as like a showcase for the worthy at Adepticon. So kind of we're doing like last year we did gallery entries. So like the judges, me, Ben, and Liz, did little gallery pieces. I'm doing another one, so that's Spider-Man versus Sandman. But that was one and done. I drew one picture. I was just like one picture, and it was just like that's it. That's the one. We're done.
Do you,
Um,
when you're drawing, do you go back to the source material and try to find like stuff that inspires you, or do you just do it straight from your memory, or what?
sometimes it's just straight from memory. Sometimes you just kind of like you just kind of have a vibe for somebody, especially something like Wolverine, right? Like I'm so entrenched in them. I have a giant collection of Wolverine comics. Uh I have issue 1 through 300 straight run of Wolverine. Like just
Really?
yeah, just 300 in a row issues of Wolverine. Um and you just kind of know what you want in the next Wolverine, right? You're just like, yeah, this one needs to be more, this one needs to be more this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like with Sandman or Black Bolt, like you go to that source material, you go online or you go to Marvel Unlimited,
Yeah.
and or you remember a story, you're like, oh my gosh, like Lizard, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite Lizard stories is a little 4-issue run in Amazing Spider-Man called Shed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic little story. Um, it's I talk about so much at work. Like Josh, we even made like a team tactic card. Monkey Brain is Lizard Home is based off that line comes out from that
Oh,
story from
yeah.
Shed.
I love when you guys
Um,
do that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so like it's a lot of that knowledge or a lot of like going back and like rereading those comics or like I'll go and grab comics out of my collection or like I said, Marvel Unlimited or
Mm-hmm.
like a character I might not know about. Like I might not know as much about. Like Josh knows about Daredevil, right? And I'm just like, Josh, tell me about Daredevil though. I'm like, so this is the vibe we want this Daredevil. Tell me about Daredevil.
Yeah.
And Josh will just start telling me about Daredevil stories. And I'll just start sketching while he's telling me Daredevil stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and or a really fun one was when we did Malekith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Malekith, the dark elf, right, riding the bat tiger. Um, we did like 3 or 4 poses, and um, I presented them to Steve Horvath, who was the president of publishing at Asmodee, because he's a huge Asgard fan.
Mm.
Like the dude just loves Asgard. And I was like, "What do you think? What do you think of these Malekiths?" And he's like, "That's not Malekith." He's like, "What are you doing? Like
Yeah.
this does not capture the majesty of Malekith." And we just happened to be going out to Asmodee HQ over in Minneapolis like in a week. And I was like, you know what? I'm coming out a week. Like, let's hang out and you tell me about Malekith.
Okay.
And I did the same thing. Me and Steve, like, we went in his office. I got out a piece of notebook paper. Actually, I didn't have a notebook. I just took paper from the copying machine, the office copying machine.
Mm.
I sat down and I'm like, Steve, paint your picture. Tell me about Malekith. And so Steve starts telling the story and I start sketching. And he's just like, yeah, Malekith does this, he does this. And like, there's this one story where he does this. And I'm like, so I'm drawing. He's like, yeah. And well, he also has this bat tiger. I'm like, oh, tell me about the back tiger. And he's like, tell me about the back tiger. And I'm drawing back tiger. And I'm like, what if the bat tiger's on the wreckage of Asgard? Like Malekith is coming. And Steve's like, yes, that's the story. Like he's coming and he is like messing up Asgard, dude. So like I'm just drawing Bat Tiger with Malekith riding it. I'm like, he's like, he should not be straddling it. He should be like up on top of it with his feet. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So like that's how like a lot of these characters are created, like, in our studios. Like a lot of us standing on a chair and like acting it out. I got pictures of everybody that works there like doing a dumb pose and me being like, yeah, that's the pose, right? Chick holding a cardboard tube as a sword or stuff like that. Like
That's awesome.
but the goal is always to capture the character and the personality.
You have to share some of those pictures sometime, man. I want you to see them.
Yeah, sometime we might share some. You have to talk to Ross about that one.
Is it proprietary information, right? It's the secret sauce.
Yeah, the whips,
Can't,
man, the
can't
whips.
release. Can't release
Or
it.
are there just some pictures you don't want to like get out?
Yeah, yeah, oh man, I got some fun pictures of it. A lot of, well, the problem is they're all in the office, so you can't show what's in the office, right?
Have you ever had like,
Yeah.
But you could go to old ones, I guess. Even then, those,
yeah?
you never know.
Have you ever had like any of your sculptors go, "Hey, I was doodling around with this and check it out," and then you're like, "Oh, we should actually do that."
Yeah,
Does it go that way, or is it pretty much like? I mean, I know you guys do a ton of stuff, so maybe they just don't have time, but everybody doodles in their
we
spare time, you know.
we definitely, yeah, they'll definitely. We've definitely had sculptors. Or we have a huge team of engineers, slash sculptors. Marco heads up that team. Marco, Evan, Kevin, Alex, um, Bexley, uh, Chris, uh, Brian, like just a huge team of the sculptors slash engineers. They're the ones that actually get the miniatures ready
Mhm.
to be put into hard plastic. But they're also sculptors in their own right. And like even like we have two sculpting directors, Mike Jones and Ron Cruzy. And Mike Jones sculpted the Immortal Hulk, right?
Oh, cool.
Like that's our sculpting coordinator. He's the one that reaches out to sculptors, works with them, hires them, um, gives them the concepts, and does that. But he sculpted the Immortal Hulk. But we've had a couple of times where like they're just like, hey, what do you think of this? Or like, hey, I worked on this, and we put it in a slush. We have and then we talk about it, and like maybe we'll find a place on the schedule. The other thing I love is like we're very collaborative. Um, our concepts, like our poses, I always say are guides, not blueprints.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to. It's not meant to be like this is the pose. I always say like if you're working on something and you come up with an idea, as long as it's better, you should present
Yeah.
it. Like if you think you made it better, you should present it to the group. And then as a group, we break a collaboration based studio, right? Where like, you know, Josh and I will hang out in the dev meetings and make sure like the flavor like of the characters there.
Mm.
Dev will come down and like Dev works very closely with us whenever we're doing terrain, and they love coming down and like taking a look at the new miniatures and stuff like that. But like, yeah, if I present a pose and the dev team or the sculpting team is just like, what if we did this? Like if we twist the ankle and we lift him up and we add this, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like, or I'll be like, okay, I see what you're doing, but I think we need to pull it back for this reason. So very collaborative, and very very much open to people presenting ideas.
Do you have to like run stuff by Marvel?
Everything, yeah, we have a very good close relationship with our licensors, LFL and Marvel.
Mhm.
um, and yeah, everything they see everything, right? Like we talk about what we're going to do, we talk about our plans, they
Yeah.
give us ideas, and we give them ideas, and we work together very closely to make sure that we're doing the best we can to present these characters and these stories in the best light, right? Like, so yeah, we have a great relationship, and we work very closely with them to make sure we're doing
Cool.
the best we can.
It's awesome, man.
I got a question
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
for Legion.
Yeah.
So some of the box arts that I've painted have been in hard plastic, and this was like from a while ago. And I know that Legion started off, it was all kind of soft plastic, right? It was the PVC or whatever. Are
Yeah.
you guys making a concerted effort to move everything over, or is it just kind of like case by case basis? Because I know like Shatterpoint and MCP is all hard Gibbs plastic. So
Yeah, Shatterpoint MCP is all hard plastic. Legion started out in soft plastic and moved to hard plastic. And our goal is to go back and get those.
Eventually, they'll
Get
all be
those.
hard plastic, or okay.
Yeah. So we started out with like this year, you're gonna see stormtroopers, rebel troopers, scout troopers. We got a new Darth Vader, new Luke Skywalker that we
That's
showed
right.
off. Just super awesome looking Luke Skywalkers. Like ones in the like the Bespin like ceremonial jacket. Ones in like the black, you know, Emperor's throne fight scene
Oh, nice.
suit. But yeah, we definitely want to get it all into hard
Hmm.
plastic. And it's we're working through that and getting it out there. So and updating the sculpts as we go along, right? Like
Okay.
taking the time to like take those sculpts and we're kind of pushing Legion. If you look at Legion and some of the stuff preview, oh, I got the hiccups. Oh my gosh! Like
Oh no.
just kind of zazzing up and giving them a little fresher take.
Right.
So
Yeah.
very exciting.
Are the new Legion models are all the hard plastic and updated sculpts?
Yeah, and like the new boxes, like we just the Geonosians were hard plastic, and they just got shown off the other day in a new box. So you're getting more miniatures in the box.
Surprised you did that
Um,
so quick. I was like,
yeah, you painted those not that long
but usually
ago.
it's a year. So I was like, I'm not saying nothing because I don't know if that's what I did or like I don't know anymore. Like
Yeah, yeah,
that was really
yeah.
quick.
So we're Legion's getting a refresh on the rules, and you can take bigger units now. It used to be like 5 and 6 man units, and now they're like 10,
Bigger, yeah, like
11, 15 like man units. So you just have more on the table. It feels more like a legion, right? The word legion just says
there's a lot of stuff.
mass
Yeah, it's a big
army,
battle.
right? It's a big
Yeah.
battle. So we want to really capture that, right? And so those Geonosians just got shown off new artwork on the boxes. Like we've shown off some of the new artwork and the new box designs.
Is the
And
box art I did for that, is that actually on the box or is it
yeah,
oh, that it is? Okay.
yep. We're keeping the painted miniatures. I'm a firm believer, like the Stu is a very
Yeah,
firm
because
believer in painted
why haven't
miniatures on the
painted then?
box.
Like I mean, there's advertisement stuff too, but it's like, um,
Well, it's a hobby game, right?
yeah,
If I can't be chef to paint it, then why should you be chef to paint
right,
it, right?
exactly.
Like we want to show how cool the stuff can look, and we want to make sure Aaron Lovejoy has a
Yeah.
job. So,
So you want to hear something
like,
funny about those Genosins? So the first time I painted them, what was it, like a year or 2 years ago? I can't even remember. It was a long time ago, but I remember painting them. And Tony's like, "We're sending you a couple more. We want them exactly the same." And I was like, I remember when I painted them the first time because they have like a really cool skin texture or whatever, to them. And I'm like, I'm gonna be super artsy and I'm gonna make like a really complicated thing, which bit me in the butt when he's like paint them the same. I was like, I can't remember what I did, but luckily he just sent a couple models with it, and I hit it. But I
yeah,
had a
they
rough
match
idea,
perfectly.
but it was like one of those things where it was kind of like sometimes you're just like I'm gonna go extra on this, and then it bites you in the butt later. But they did.
We
They
do
came out
try.
great.
We do try to send like if we're trying to get somebody to match something, like
Yeah.
we can send like a little sample.
Yeah. I
So
mean, luckily, I
you
remember
can.
the kind of the base colors for it, but I couldn't remember which order. Maybe I did a wash or a glaze, and like that can change everything, you know?
Yeah, it can change
You
everything.
do the glaze first, and now it doesn't look anything like it did. So it is what it is. But the models are super freaking cool. Like,
What are the
Yeah,
emotions? I don't
the
know.
Geonosians are the bug
the bug
dudes
dudes.
you see in
Two,
episode
I think. Yeah.
2. Yep,
Those trader guys,
Yeah.
the
They have the
Fader
weird little
Federation.
blaster
yep.
guns, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
they're super cool. Big bug eyes. I love it. Yeah, those are fun
But
ones.
yeah, yeah, all that stuff's getting done in hard plastic, and I'm super excited for it. I got hard plastic stormtroopers by me that I really need to get to because I really want to flesh out I built a clone army and I built a shadow syndicate army, and now really want to do an empire army, mainly because I already have 3 painted ATSTs and I'm such a treadhead. Like I just,
Well,
man, I just want to put
yeah,
those
Legion has all
ATSTs
the
and some
vehicles,
stormtroopers on the
and the
table.
vehicles are super cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm doing my stormtroopers and like as I'm painting my stormtroopers not white, I'm doing them as the Imperial armor gray, so they're painted like an ATST.
Oh, okay.
Because I want them to feel like more menacing and like armored, right? So they're a lot of fun.
That's super cool.
That's cool, dude.
Sweet.
What other questions you got? I love answering these questions because I don't get an opportunity, and I love getting the information out there.
How many? So, what's the size of like a Legion army? I'm just curious. Usually.
Like points or
Well, like how
miniatures?
many miniatures?
Uh, the the more the new Legion rules, you can field. You can currently. My favorite number is right now. You can field 118, I think, B1 battle
118.
droids.
What? Holy crap!
Just a mass of B1 battle droids marching across the field, man. So, oh, look at Matt's Colossus.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Looks shiny.
Boom, done. I'm happy. I'm like this. That's ready for the table,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Oh,
You know?
I'm super excited for our game because it's just going to be cool.
Oh man, it's gonna be like there's gonna be so many amazing models on the table. We're gonna have so much fun.
Is there someone taking stills of the game? Because there's gonna be so many like cinematic moments, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure like I'm sure we can convince Matt to come over and take some pictures during the game.
That'd be sweet.
This is where I got Black Bolt. Okay.
See?
I'm
Okay.
not terribly set up very well.
Yeah.
I know. When you get your cores for your camera, it's gonna be sick. Nice.
And then I actually almost got Karnak done too.
Nice.
Cool. So I've been painting Honey Badger some more.
Yeah.
Look at her
Honey Badger's
jacket.
So awesome.
Volumetry.
She just looks so frumpy, and I think it's perfect.
She just roll out of bed,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, it's very unique.
That's why she's so angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't mess with the honey badger.
So I got one more model to paint for my army. Which one do you think I should do? Should I do Storm or Beast?
Who's your leader? Matt, Professor X?
Yeah, I got Professor X.
I would do.
I mean,
I don't know. I would do Beast.
I love the Storm Measure, but Beast, like, just paint them both and bring them both.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have 11 things. Yeah, I mean the Storm miniature is so cool.
Cheating already.
But it is kind of. Maybe I'll paint Storm during our next.
There we go.
During our next. The last, because our next stream is our last stream before our deputy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We gotta figure out what we're doing with our lives after that.
All
We
that
can
free
just keep
time.
doing this.
Yeah,
man.
I'm
Paint other
having a
things.
blast. Yeah, I mean, we can just keep going. Shoot,
If you want.
I'm happy to keep going.
I'm down. Hey, it's doing what I wanted it to do, and that is getting me to actually paint some of my own stuff, which is great. Which is great, because like we had a gaming weekend a few weeks ago, and we actually played Shadows of Brimstone, which I do box art for too. We played it the entire time we were there. It was amazing. And
That's a fun game.
yeah, it was super fun, but it was all with painted models that I've painted. So like it was even more fun, you know? So it was, and like next year I'll be able to fully field MCP. And I know my best friend John, like he plays. So, yeah, it'll be super cool. So there's nothing wrong with getting figures painted up, you know, like I'm all on board. So super cool.
Yeah. You know, maybe, yeah, we'll branch out or just keep painting MCP, you know,
Yeah, whatever.
like that's fine too. Yeah, I'm digging this. It's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
But
And it's been fun hanging out with you all.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Totally.
getting past my bedtime. I'm old.
yeah, it's like midnight over there, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And we've
Woo!
been taking care of this little baby, so we got to wake up early, which has been great because I get way more work done during the day. So it all works out. But cool beans. Well, thank you, Dallas, for joining us again, and Matt and
Good times, bud.
Anthony. You guys are rocking.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
And thanks everybody who showed up.
Yeah, thanks for going through
to
our
watch. Yeah,
OBS
you know.
breakdown and all that stuff. Super cool.
Tell your friends. We do this once a month, and yeah, we had a lot of really great questions in the chat. Hopefully, we got to as many as we could. You know.
Sometimes we
And hopefully you
Tell your
learned
friends
something
to
too.
come
You
to
know?
Adepticon. They gotta come to Adepticon, play in some tournaments, and watch our dumb game because it's gonna
be off the hook.
Yeah.
I almost used the word, and then I was like, "It'd give it away."
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna be so cool. Right on.
All right,
I
guys.
can't wait to. I cannot wait.
He
I
wants to tell
have.
us. Just tell us, Dallas.
I have 3 converted miniatures, like converted, sculpted miniatures that I did just for this game.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be super cool.
Oh, it's gonna be cool.
Can't wait to see you, man.
Very cool.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
All right.
Cool.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
See you next time.
See ya.